Naruto, in the name of time, I will shake the ninja world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, The Whirlpool Survivors, Winning Over the Hearts of the People. Hatake Tsukumo stared at the coalition forces' withdrawal. He seemed quite calm, but in fact his muscles were tense, always be ready for a fight. But fortunately, the tactic of borrowing the power of the tiger to bully others still worked. Although the Raikage was powerful, he was still afraid of the Hokage. Now they don't want to fall out with Konoha. After getting the due benefits, they will evacuate quickly. The remaining Uzumaki survivors are no big deal. This guy, the Raikage, seems simple-minded and reckless, but he is actually thoughtful and courageous, which is rare. Uchiha came to Hatake Tsukumo's side and spoke slowly with an extremely serious expression. The momentum just now gave him a deep feeling of suffocation, as if someone was strangling him by the neck, which was unbearable. The martial power of each Raikage is among the best in the ninja world, which is recognized by everyone, but it is not surprising to have military force. But once both civil and military affairs are given equal weight, it will be troublesome, and no one wants to confront such an opponent. Hatake Tsukumo chuckled and shook his head, saying proudly, "No matter how powerful you are, you can't compare to Hokage-sama." Hearing this, Uchiha also smiled knowingly, deeply agreeing with him, with the corners of his mouth unable to suppress their upward movement. That's right, no matter how powerful he is, the Raikage cannot compare to a Hokage. Recalling Konoha's series of policies and arrangements in recent years, Uchiha couldn't help but deeply admire the wisdom and powerful means of the Hokage. In a short period of time, Konoha's chronic illnesses were eliminated, and it was rejuvenated with greater vitality. To watch the coalition forces gradually disappear in the Whirlpool country, and then walk towards the Whirlpool survivors. I am Hatake Tsukumo of Konoha. I have been ordered to come to support the land of whirlpools. Please come out and see me. Hatake Tsukumo raised his head and spoke loudly, then waited quietly. After a while, a group of people appeared in sight, supporting each other and walking out. Hatake Tsukumo's eyes flickered slightly. Then he walked towards an old man and spoke in a softer tone. "Hello, Chief Ashina. I am Hatake Tsukumo, the head of Konoha's Anbu." Before coming, Hoshino Kaede gave him a photo of the current Uzumaki clan leader. That's why Hatake Tsukumo saw the Uzumaki clan leader at first sight. Uzumaki Ashina was not in good condition. In the previous waves of attacks, he was the one who led the charge and repelled the enemy's attacks. His body was covered with a mixture of minor and serious injuries, and his clothes were covered with blood, making him look extremely horrible. He looked up at Hatake Tsukumo, extremely excited, broke free from the support of his tribesmen, walked forward and kept talking. Thank you. If you hadn't arrived in time, the last remaining Uzumaki clan would have been gone." Hatake Tsukumo sighed inwardly and looked up at the group of people behind the clan leader. Looking around, almost all the people there are old, weak, sick and disabled, with only a dozen young and middle-aged people left. The total number of people barely reached 100, so you can imagine how heavy the losses were. "Chief Uzumaki, Konoha sent us to pick you up. If there's anything you want to collect, please do it as soon as possible. We must hurry back immediately to avoid any more trouble at night." Although the four-nation coalition forces have evacuated, there is no guarantee that they will not change their minds halfway, and changes may occur over time, so they have to set off as soon as possible. Only by returning to the Fire Country can we ensure safety. After hearing this, Uzumaki Ashina nodded repeatedly and called on the tribesmen who were still in good physical condition to collect the Uzumaki clan's legacy. Inside are the only precious sealing techniques left of the Uzumaki clan, which are the core of the Uzumaki clan. Most of the things that were snatched away by those people were ordinary sealing techniques, the highest of which was only B level. Sealing techniques above A level are kept in the Uzumaki clan's ancestral hall and are guarded most strictly. Half a day later, the maintenance was finally completed. Uzumaki Ashina looked exhausted, not only physically, but more mentally. Such a big country was destroyed in just a few days, leaving only 2 or 3 cats and kittens as the patriarch. He felt deeply guilty and sad, and regretted his actions. Uzumaki Mito initially wrote to him, asking him to be more vigilant and pay attention to the education of ninjutsu, but he felt it was unnecessary at the time because the Whirlpool country is far away from the mainland and has no resources. It is believed that other countries will not come to attack, but the facts gave him a hard slap in the face. The four-nation coalition forces broke through the defense line of the Whirlpool country silently. He used thunderous means to plunder the sealing technique and massacred the Uzumaki clan on a large scale, with the aim of making them disappear from the ninja world. There is no medicine for regret in the world. Uzumaki Ashina was deeply immersed in guilt. In just one night, he aged rapidly and wrinkles covered his cheeks. His hair was gray, his body was hunched over, and he was in tears during the preparation period. After wiping his face slightly and trying his best to maintain his demeanor, Uzumaki Ashina spoke to Hatake Tsukumo, who had been waiting for a long time. Okay, everything has been packed up. From now on, there will be no more Whirlpool country. He said this in a sad tone, with mixed feelings in his heart and a look of deep loneliness in his eyes. Seeing this, Hatake Tsukumo sighed deeply and said, "Chief, please accept my condolences. The Uzumaki clan has suffered such a disaster and the people are in panic. Now we still need the chief to stabilize the people's hearts. Everything will be fine once we get to Konoha." After saying that, he took out the handwritten letter from Zingai Feng from his arms, handed it to him, and said, "This is a letter from Hokage-sama." Uzumaki Ashina's eyes moved and he took it tremblingly. At this moment, all kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. With the destruction of the Whirlpool country, their status is naturally not equal to that of Konoha. What the future holds for Konoha is all written in this letter. As I said, the prerequisite for equality is that both sides have equal strength, and the gap is not too big. Obviously, the Uzumaki clan does not have this condition now. With mixed emotions, Uzumaki Ashina opened the envelope, praying inwardly that this Hokage was not the kind of person who would take advantage of someone's misfortune. The weak are slaughtered by the strong. This is an unchanging truth in the world. And this is especially true in the ninja world. Uzumaki Ashina read every word in the letter carefully. Hatake Tsukumo did not urge him, but stood there waiting quietly. After a while, Uzumaki Ashina's expression became more complicated, but it was not an expression of being slaughtered and lonely, but an expression of surprise. Most of the contents of this letter are words of consolation and self-blame. Putting these aside, the whole letter consists of just one sentence: Konoha welcomes the Uzumaki clan. All supplies will be provided by Konoha. Uzumaki Ashina was extremely unbelievable in his heart that such a good thing would happen to the suffering Uzumaki clan. Is that Hokage a fool? Obviously, Kid Hoshino is not like that. He who wins the hearts of the people will win the world. If the Uzumaki clan wants to integrate into Konoha, they must first win their hearts. At this moment, Konoha extended a helping hand to the Uzumaki clan in their most dangerous time, which was like providing timely assistance. Uzumaki Ashina bowed deeply in the direction of Konoha, then spoke to Hatake Tsukumo. "Thank you, Hokage, for your assistance to the Uzumaki clan. Ashina will remember it in her heart." Chapter 102, Sand Ninja enters the Rain Country, joins forces? Hatake Tsukumo smiled, and now became much more enthusiastic that the Uzumaki clan could join Konoha. Everyone is happy. Sealing technique is a very precious technique in the ninja world. When the village was built, the outer defensive barrier was modeled after the Uzumaki clan, which protected Konoha's stability for decades. "Tsukumo, it's time to go," Uchiha Kitajima reminded from the side. Hatake Tsukumo nodded and immediately gave the order to set off. Before leaving, Uzumaki Ashina looked back deeply at his hometown, and with a reluctant look, he slowly left the land where he had lived for decades. People say the sunset is the end of the world, but I can't see my home even if I look to the end of the world. During the journey, the group traveled at full speed without stopping for a moment. However, due to the presence of wounded soldiers and children, it took them half a month to arrive in Konoha. Fortunately, everything was calm during that period and nothing happened. Hatake Tsukumo looked at the gate of Konoha in front of him, let out a long breath, turned to Uzumaki Ashina and said, "We are here. Elder Sarutobi will take you to the land given to you by Konoha later. I have to report to the Hokage first, so I'll leave you alone for now." Upon hearing this, Uzumaki Ashina was very polite and showed no dissatisfaction. "After all, it's important to do, so you can understand it. Minister Hatake, please. If you have time in the future, you can come to our house as a guest. The Uzumaki clan will welcome you very much." Hatake Tsukumo smiled and agreed, then gave some instructions to Kitajima and headed towards the Hokage building. Uzumaki Ashina looked for a while, his eyes fixed on Konoha. Then you see a scene of people living and working in peace and contentment, the innocent smiles of children, the transactions of vendors, and the endless stream of people talking and laughing. It is true that, in prosperous times, there is no hunger, so why bother farming and weaving? Everyone in Konoha has a longing for a better life on his face, which is not seen in other countries. "Excuse me, are you Ashina-senpai?" Just as he was watching intently, Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly appeared, looked at him and asked politely, Hokage. Sama asked me to take you to where you live. Uzumaki Ashin aside that the Hokage had done a complete job, and then led the tribe to their residence on the other side. Hatake Tsukumo was reporting on the progress of the mission. When he heard the third Raikage, Hoshino Kaede said, "Everyone in the Kumagakure is warlike. It was all started by the Raikage, but they are of no importance to us right now. It's mainly the Sand Ninja who have been making moves recently, compared to the Cloud Ninjas. Hoshino Kaede cares more about the Sand Ninjas. After all, the wool comes from the sheep, and the Sand Ninjas are the most suitable to be the sheep." Understood. Hatake Tsukumo looked serious. Zingai Feng asked again, "By the way, are there any geniuses in the Uzumaki clan?" he asked suddenly, and although he was confused, Hatake Tsukumo answered truthfully, "There is one, a girl, whose chakra is not inferior to that of an elite Jonin at the age of 3. I am really surprised." Hatake Tsukumo's tone was slightly amazed. "Girl? That's good." Zingai Feng suddenly realized and said to himself, "Has the Uzumaki clan land been arranged?" "Okay, Elder Sarutobi has gone to take over," Hatake Tsukumo said concisely. "That's right, you go and get busy first. And call Master Mito over," Hoshino Feng said with a smile, then lowered his head and got busy. Hatake Tsukumo nodded and left the office without any hesitation. After a while, Uzumaki Mito was seen rushing over with a look of great joy. He must have known the news that the Uzumaki clan had arrived in Konoha. Zingai Feng chuckled and shook his head. Master's wife doesn't say it, but she must be very worried in her heart. It wasn't like this at the beginning. Uzumaki Mito rolled her eyes at his teasing, but didn't say anything. After all, it was the truth. It's a good thing that the Uzumaki clan has joined Konoha. Konoha has become even stronger in your hands. Tsubarima made the right choice. We are strong, but that doesn't mean we can sit back and relax. Zingai Feng sighed with deep emotion, but didn't continue. Now is not the time. Seeing that he hadn't finished speaking, Uzumaki Mito looked at him deeply. Zingai Feng touched his head and smiled foolishly, changing the subject. "There is a little girl in the Uzumaki clan. I would like to ask Master's wife to train her." "You would pay attention to such a small matter," Mito said with interest. Hoshino Kaede spoke righteously and seemed so dignified, but he lied without hesitation. "This is no small matter. A strong country is made up of strong youth. It is also the Hokage's duty to pay attention to the younger generation of Konoha. If the youth are strong, the country will be strong." "That sounds good." Uzumaki Mito pondered over it carefully and found that this statement was concise and to the point, which gave him an indescribable sense of comfort. "Then I'll train him." Uzumaki Mito agreed, planning to go and take a look later. There are not many people who can be favored by Zingai Feng. I think there must be something special about them. The news of the destruction of the Whirlpool country quickly spread throughout the ninja world. This was the first recorded incident of the destruction of a country because the commotion was so loud and attracted close attention from all parties. It was originally thought that the Uzumaki clan was destroyed, but later news came. The remnants of the Uzumaki clan joined Konoha, and the clan was not exterminated. This made Konoha's strength rise to a new level, and some jealous people could no longer sit still. The Sand Ninjas quickly increased their manpower and used the Rain Country as a springboard to station troops there. This made Hoshino Kaede, who was far away in Konoha, deeply confused. After all, according to the historical trajectory, the Second Ninja World War should have been fired by the Rain Country, but now the Sand Ninjas have moved and he was really puzzled. Could it be that he, a butterfly, had changed the course of history? Immediately afterwards, Zingai Feng convened a high-level meeting. The head of the Military Intelligence Department, Genichi Yamanaka, spoke first. "Hokage-sama, the Sand Ninja has entered the Rain Country. It is obvious that the two countries have joined forces. According to the information sent back by the spies in the front, Hanzo of the Land of Rain has teamed up with the Sand Ninja to invade Konoha." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Danzo immediately shouted angrily, "This is too much bullying. Is Konoha afraid of them?" Sarutobi Hiruzen also looked unhappy. Although he had a gentle temperament, it did not mean that he was a paper tiger. The Sand Ninja did not go through the First Ninja World War, and their strength is complete. They have been developing for more than 10 years. It can be said that this time they are determined to bite off a piece of meat from Konoha. The Rain Country is sandwiched between the Fire, Earth, and Wind countries. It is in an awkward position. If we don't want to be engulfed in the flames of war, we must take the initiative to attack. Hiruzen was worthy of being the Hokage in his previous life. He had a good strategic vision and quickly analyzed the situation. Narashikachi also agreed with his idea and said to Hoshino Kaede, "The situation is very clear. The Sand Village and the Rain Village are targeting Konoha. but the situation of the other three countries is still unclear. Zhang Gaifeng pondered for a moment, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. The Hidden Mist Village can be ruled out, but the Cloud Village and the Rock Village may take advantage of the situation, so we must be on guard. Send people to the two countries immediately to gather intelligence, and send more personnel to the border to prevent surprise attacks. After a brief consideration, Kid Hoshino made the decision. Looking at the overall situation, the Sand Village was a major threat after decades of accumulation. The Sand Village is well prepared and defense should be the priority. Chapter 103 The Second Ninja World War, Attack and Defense Change Type. Dark clouds covered the earth, drizzle fell, and a smell of gunpowder smoke filled the ninja world. 30 years into Konoha, the war began in the conference room. Hoshino Kaede was smiling, but if you looked closely, you could see that he was smiling out of anger, and a strong murderous intent enveloped everyone. Okay, I've seen shameless people before, but I've never seen such shamelessness. Are they still considered one of the 5 great ninja villages, using such a ridiculous reason? Do you think that everyone in the ninja world is stupid? Angry voices echoed in the conference room. Everyone looked angry. The reason why the Sand Ninja started the war was too outrageous. It is unwise to make people think that their top management is mentally ill. There lay quietly on the table a letter declaring war, sent by the third Hokage himself, but the reason inside is what makes them angry. A team from the Sand Ninja Village and the Rain Country disappeared within the Fire Country. I request that someone be sent to search for them. Please cooperate with the investigation, otherwise, the two countries will declare war on Konoha. The weasel pays a New Year's greeting to the chicken. He has no good intentions and is just outright declaring war. If Konoha lets them in to investigate, it would not only mean that Konoha is giving in, but would also be a slap in the face of the Fire Nation. So, although it seems that they have been given a choice, in fact, they just want to start a war and are just looking for a suitable reason. Hokage, the Sand Village has gone too far. Konoha will never surrender. Uchiha Kidajima stood up and said firmly, Konoha is not the Konoha of the past. It has strong soldiers and horses, far surpassing other ninja villages in all aspects. It is not afraid of anyone in a war. Yes, this battle must be fought. Even the usually quiet Hinadamori was furious and looked sullen. They are shameless and invincible. Even if the Sand Village is a group of gangsters, they use such ridiculous reasons. Do they think there is no one in Konoha? The patriarchs of the two major families spoke, and the other families echoed them one after another, sharing the same hatred and being extremely united. Anyone who encounters this situation would be furious, seeing that everyone was looking for a fight. Zhang Gaifeng's mouth corners slightly raised, and then he tapped his fingers on the table, making a sound. The scene suddenly became quiet, and all eyes were focused on Zhang Gaifeng. Over the years, I have roughly figured out the temper of this Hokage. Generally speaking, he is usually easy to talk to, but when something big happens, he will stick to his word. If we really compare them, in some ways he is even more domineering than the second Hokage. After looking at everyone's expectant eyes, Zhang Gaifeng slowly spoke. The Sand Village has repeatedly provoked Konoha with the intention of invading the Land of Fire. We will never give up an inch of our land. If they want to fight, we will fight them. The Second Ninja World War begins from now on. These words determine the situation in the ninja world. Konoha bared its sharp fangs, ready to bite the invading enemies at any time. Shikaichi, spread the contents of this letter throughout the ninja world, and then Konoha will declare war on the Sand Ninja and the Rain Ninja. Hoshino Kaede's eyes flashed, and she turned to Nara Shikaichi and said, let the ninja world see the true face of the Sand Ninja. My Konoha was forced to fight back. Hearing this, Nara Shikaichi nodded heavily and immediately went down to prepare. Then, Hoshino Kaede said again, the Sand Ninja uses the Rain Country as a springboard. Its ambition is great. The scale of this war can be imagined, but I still say that no matter how big the war is, we must not let them set foot on the land of the Fire Nation. Hatake Tsukumo, you will serve as the commander-in-chief and go to the border to fight. Take 4,000 ninjas. There is only one goal, to make sure they never return. To show the power of Konoha, Hatake Tsukumo's face was solemn, his eyes were extremely sharp, and his whole body was like a knife ready to be fired. He said in a deep voice, yes, it's just a short word, but it's full of his firm determination. After Zhang Gaifeng finished speaking, he slowly stood up and glanced at everyone with a dignified gaze. The aura of a superior became stronger, more powerful and overbearing. In the First Shinobi World War, it was others who invaded us, but this time, the offense and defense have changed. Konoha doesn't like war, but it's not afraid of it either. After saying that, Zhang Gaifeng left the meeting room. leaving everyone confused. The meaning of what was said just now is a bit confusing, and most people think it was just words of encouragement, but only a few people were shocked and understood the deep meaning of those words just after the high-level meeting. An incredible piece of news spread throughout Konoha. The Sand Village fabricated facts and wanted to invade Konoha Village and plunder its land. It instantly caused an uproar. Everyone was extremely indignant, their faces flushed, and nameless fire surging in their hearts. Afterwards, the Hokage gave the order to form a force to fight back and never compromise. This action made the villagers cheer and look excited. Half a month later, 4,000 ninja soldiers were assembled, with Hatake Tsukumo as the commander-in-chief, and several people standing behind him: Senju Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Midori Shikishio and Yuhima. The lineup is extremely luxurious, and each of them is a top-notch among the elite Chunin, touching the edge of the cage level. Ha ha ha. It's finally time for me to show off my skills. Jiraiya stretched his muscles and said confidently, but before he could feel proud for a few seconds, he was suppressed by Tsunade's force and knocked to the ground with one punch. HMPH, be quiet. Tsunade clenched her fists and threatened. Orochimaru was watching the show as usual. He was used to it. They have a really good relationship. Zhedong smiled when she saw this. Yudere Shikishio had a strange look on his face and raised his eyebrows. How did you know that? I don't think so at all. Cough cough. Hatake Tsukumo had a dark face and coughed heavily several times. These guys just looked at the occasion and didn't pay any attention. Fortunately, the commander-in-chief still had some authority, and his kind look finally calmed them down. Standing on the stage, Hatake Tsukumo gave a pre-war speech to mobilize their blood, then waved his hand and said, "Set off." Thousands of people marched towards the border in a mighty manner. This scene has happened more than 10 years ago and is happening again today. People are different, and their spirits are different too. Kid Hoshino stood on the Hokage rock, watching the troops disappear from sight from afar. "Lu Yi, are you ready this time?" he said without turning his head. Narashikechi nodded calmly. "Everything is ready, just waiting for the news of the Sand Ninja's defeat to reach Konoha." Zangief smiled slightly. "That's good. This war is an opportunity. If we handle it well, Konoha's dominant position will not be shaken in the future. The bigger your fist, the more respect others will have for you." Many plans made before could not be implemented because of the lack of an opportunity. The Second Ninja World War was a perfect opportunity to take advantage of and use war to decide the future status, and Konoha was bound to win this time. Konoha will completely control the economic lifeline and consolidate its position as the overlord of the ninja world. After a month, we will start implementing it. Chapter 104, Strong Enemy. Puppet Master Generation. Half a month later, Konoha Camp. Hatake Tsukumo leaned over to examine the map, his brows furrowed. A few days ago, a skirmish broke out between the Sand Village and them, and the fighting started instantly. The two sides fought to the death, and Hatake Tsukumo's opponent was the third Kazekage. Thinking of this, Hatake Tsukumo unconsciously touched his arm, where he was cut by the Kazekage. The mark was so faint that it was almost invisible. "Kazekage," Hatake Tsukumo said to himself, with a fierce look flashing in his eyes. "The bloodline limit is indeed troublesome. With a magnetic escape technique, he cannot exert the full power of his Hatake swordsmanship." Although he was slightly injured, the Sand Ninja suffered heavy losses, and Konoha's overall quality was higher than theirs. Not to mention, there are two unexpected people, Midori Shishio and Yuhishiku. Fortunately, Salamander Hanzo is not here, otherwise they would be very passive. "Commander-in-Chief, the scouts report that the Sand Ninjas are gathering their troops again and rushing towards us," an intelligence ninja said quickly. Hatake Tsukumo frowned and quickly and calmly ordered, "Gather the troops and fight immediately." After saying that, he immediately rushed to the front line of the battlefield. Holding a handful of white teeth tightly in his hands, with a strong fighting spirit all over his body, determined to get back his advantage after receiving the news, the two armies stared at each other from a distance of more than 10 miles apart. The air was full of gunpowder and could almost ignite at any time. "Hatake Tsukumo, I hurt you that day, but it seems you have recovered." The Kazekage circulated chakra in his mouth, and his voice traveled far away, so Konoha could hear it clearly. This was a strategy to attack the heart. Feng Ying thought he was fully prepared, but after the previous tentative fight, he was shocked. The level of the Konoha ninja was unexpected, and they caused heavy losses to the Sand Ninja. After fighting for half a day, this forced Feng Ying to change his original strategy. What he said now was that he wanted to undermine the morale of Konoha's army. As long as the morale of the army was disrupted, Konoha would be defeated. Everyone has had a verbal fight, and Hatake Tsukumo was no slouch at all. He directly hit the sore spot of the Kazekage. "Thank you for your concern. The sand ninja must have suffered a lot of losses. If we fight again, I'm afraid there will be no one left. This statement is a 999 critical hit. While it is said that there are few people, in fact it is squeezing the Wind Country, which has a vast land and a sparse population in terms of land area. China ranks first among the 5 major countries, but land area does not represent strength. Most of it is desert, with only a few oases, so the actual habitable area is greatly reduced. Otherwise, the Khazakage would not have invaded Konoha, because there were simply too few available resources. Just the trees that can be seen everywhere in Konoha are enough to make the Khazakage salivate. Haha, what's the point of being tough with your mouth? The real test will be revealed with your hands. After knowing that verbal battles were useless, Feng Ying stopped talking and started fighting directly. Everything you say at this time is empty talk. A battle will determine who is stronger. I thought so too, Hatake Tsukumo said with cold eyes after the verbal battle between the commanders of both sides ended. A large-scale battle broke out. Kill. Drive these invaders back. This is not the place for you to act wild. Get out of here, a bunch of shameless guys, high-sounding but extremely ugly. While fighting, the Konoha ninjas did not forget to squeeze and scold their opponents, beating and cursing at the same time, which boosted their morale. Midori Shishio and Yuhishiku rushed directly into the group of sand ninjas and started the massacre. To deal with this group of mid and low-level ninjas, they simply used a dimensionality reduction attack, killing them one by one. Zhenhong's superb illusion technique was like a magical weapon on the battlefield, and more than a dozen people committed suicide in an instant. However, Mitarashi Shiksha's role is much more complicated, with all kinds of escape techniques used at the same time, and she cooperates perfectly with her partner. Sometimes it's water, sometimes it's fire. It's very lethal and exciting to watch. The sand ninjas are no good. They dare to invade with this level. They must have something wrong with their brains. After killing another team, Utemashi Shishio said disdainfully. Midori Shishio did not refute. He also felt that the invasion of the sand ninja was unwise, but sometimes, the top management doesn't care about this. After the enemy in front of them was eliminated, the two went to look for their target again, but the sand ninja would not let them continue. Just as they were about to leave, they suddenly stopped and saw many hidden weapons appearing in front of them. Yudere Zixio stood in front of Zuri's Henhong, quickly formed a seal, shouted softly, and then slapped the ground. Escape? Earth flow wall. A wall of earth slowly rose up, blocking the two men. All the hidden weapons hit the wall, making rumbling sounds. Bang. The force was so great and the accuracy was so precise that it actually went straight through the earth wall. Just a second later, the earth wall shattered and rocks flew everywhere. The two men stepped back, dodging the remaining hidden weapons, then looked up at the person blocking their way ahead. Uzai Xio took a closer look and said in a deep voice, "Be careful, there is a master." "You don't have to tell me. This level of throwing and strength are extremely rare in the ninja world." Zihi Shinhong's eyes were extremely solemn. "I originally thought that if I moved faster I could kill more enemies, but now my plan has failed." Just as the two were talking, several figures rushed out from the woods. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of breaking through the air continued, and all kinds of hidden weapons were like ants, stretching as far as the eye can see. Separate. Uzai Xio made a prompt decision. The two men quickly separated and hid to the sides, and a large wave of hidden weapons fell on the tree behind them. In an instant, he fell to the ground with a loud bang, and his body was covered with all kinds of hidden weapons. At this time, both of them also saw clearly the figures who attacked them. None of them are real people, giving people a strange and weird feeling. "This is a puppet," Yudashi Xio said in surprise after thinking for a moment. The sand ninja's puppeteer level is the strongest in the ninja world. Although he has heard of it, he has never seen a real puppet. Well, judging by the degree of completion of this puppet, it should be of a very high level. Zihishiku took a look and made a judgment. Puppets are made to imitate real people. The more realistic their images, the stronger their power is. They didn't recognize it at first glance and thought it was a real person. It was only when they looked again that they could see the clue. A puppet of this level is probably not some unknown person. Yudere Zixio spoke slowly, his nerves tense and alarm bells ringing in his heart. Before they knew it, they were surrounded by puppets. Haha, the little guy reacted pretty quickly, but it's too late. The voice came from afar. The two looked at each other and saw the pressure on each other. The voice is a female voice, and among the many sand ninja puppeteers, there is only one that is the elder of the sand village, the one who stands at the top of countless sand ninjas, the puppeteer Chiyo. "It's you, Chiyo from the sand village." Looking at Chiyo, who was gradually walking out, Mitarashi Shixio's heart sank, and he felt that there was trouble. Chiyo looked at the two of them. Her eyes moved slightly, The corners of her mouth curled up, and she spoke with squinted eyes. "Who is that?" "It turns out to be the disciple of the third Hokage. It seems like you have gained a lot today. As a powerful figure famous in the ninja world, all the villages will naturally pay attention to Hoshino Kaede." The 3 disciples he accepted were naturally among them, and Chihaya remembered them in his heart. Chapter 105 The Power of the Third Hokage. So it's Chihaya from the Sand Village. No wonder her puppetry skills are so high. Yuhishiku narrowed her eyes and did not show any fear. "Haha, whether it's high or not doesn't belong to you or me. We need to fight to know." Chihaya's eyes suddenly turned cold, and she controlled the puppets to rush forward. While she stood there and watched under Chihaya's control, the puppet launched the first round of attack. A refined poison was smeared on the blade and tail of the puppet, emitting a chilling light. Faced with the attacks of multiple puppets, Yuhishiku remained calm and did not panic. After looking at Yuhishiku at the same time, he jumped up like a leaf falling from the sky, dodging the fatal attack without getting hit by a single leaf. It was as smooth as flowing water, strolling leisurely in the garden, as if it was very familiar with the puppet's attack routes. Chihaya was standing on the sidelines and naturally noticed something was wrong, so she pulled the puppet strings with her 10 fingers to make the puppet stop. "I didn't expect you to be so familiar with puppets. I was careless." Yutara Shizuka remained calm on the surface, but secretly he was glad that he did not slack off. What Hoshino Kaede teaches is very diverse. In addition to practical application, theory is also tested. What I learned that day was actually applied in actual combat. "Haha, you are careless in many ways." Yuta Shizuka smiled and his eyes focused as soon as he finished speaking. Yuhishiku, who had sneaked up in front of Chihaya without anyone noticing, appeared in an instant and cast an illusion. Oh no, Chihaya was caught off guard and had no time to react before being dragged into the illusion. "Well done, Zhenhong." Yutara Shizuka gave a thumbs up. It was worth it that he attracted all of Chihaya's attention and created an opportunity for her to counterattack. Hearing the praise, Yuhishiku was not happy, but immediately stepped forward and wanted to end Chihaya's life to avoid any more trouble. Chihaya, who was deeply trapped in the illusion, had a dull look in her eyes, like a puppet. Having lost her original soul, Yuhishiku picked up the kunai and prepared to end the battle. However, unexpectedly, the hand holding the kunai suddenly stopped moving forward. "What?" Yuhishiku looked horrified and full of disbelief. Chihaya's dull eyes regained their vitality, and her chakra surged, making her clothes rustle. An aura unique to the shadow level erupted. And the terrifying aura continued to press towards the two of them, shrouding them in a shadow. "To Elite Jonin, you dare to look down on me? You really don't take me seriously." Chihaya spoke slowly, anger rising in her eyes and murderous intent surging. She is the wife of the first Hokage, the elder advisor of the Sand Village, and a Hokage-level powerhouse standing tall in the ninja world. Even the current Hokage has to show him some courtesy, but these 2 young boys dare to do this. It's too much. After saying that, Chihaya threw out a palm, and a short sound of strong wind was heard. The angry blow caused Yuhishiku to spit out blood from his mouth. His breath was weak, and he seemed to be seriously injured. It would definitely not feel good to endure a Hokage-level attack. As for why Chihaya didn't take the chance to kill him, all I can say is that having a good teacher is very important. If the Hokage's disciples were killed, the fight would be to the death. Even Hanzo of the Salamander did not kill the Sannin. One of the reasons was that he was afraid of the Hokage and Konoha and did not want to make the relationship too serious. Zhenhong, Yuta Shizuka quickly helped him up and gave him some simple treatment to ensure that his injuries would not worsen in the short term. "Boy, you're the only one left. What can you do? Just lie there quietly." Although Chihaya cannot kill them, she can make them lose their fighting power. Then, chakra lines were thrown out, intending to restrain the movements of the 2 people and keep them here. Yutara Shizuka clenched his fists. For the first time, he felt that his strength was too weak. The pride in his heart was shattered to the ground. At this moment, a graceful figure appeared in front of the 2 of them, and then threw a punch, hitting the ground, causing smoke and dust to rise. The resulting shockwave shook the chakra lines back and rushed towards Chihaya. Without losing momentum, Chihaya stepped back, and when the dust and fog cleared, the face of the person appeared. It was Tsunade. "Tsunade, you've arrived just in time." Seeing Tsunade arriving, Materashi Shizuka breathed a sigh of relief. "Zixio, take Shiku back first." Tsunade took a sharp look at Shiku and instantly knew his current condition, and said immediately. Yutara Shizuka knew that now was not the time to hesitate, so he nodded and said, "Okay, be careful. She is very powerful." After saying that, he left with Shiku, leaving Chihaya and Tsunade alone. Chihaya looked at the 2 people walking away, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, revealing a disdainful smile. She said to Tsunade coldly, Humph, here comes another one seeking death. None of you will leave here alive today. After saying that, she was about to rush forward, but she saw the sand ninja's retreat signal appear in the sky. Tsunade looked at the sky, raised the corner of her mouth and said, "Chiao, the sand ninja has retreated, why don't you leave?" Hearing this, Chiao stared at the sky, then sighed and looked at the people walking away and Tsunade in front of her. "You are lucky. I will let you go today." After leaving a cruel remark, Chiao quickly evacuated and left as a shadow. Seeing Chiao retreat, Tsunade's tense heart relaxed. She was not sure she could defeat a cage-level warrior at his peak, but it would be a little easier in a few years. Tsunade stood for a moment, then returned to the camp and began to get busy. Many wounded people needed treatment. Even though there is the butterfly Hoshino Kaede, what should happen remains unchanged, and Tsunade is still immersed in medical ninjutsu, but now he is still relatively green and immature, and can only heal some minor injuries. But for the current Konoha, it is enough. After treating a few wounded people, someone informed him to go to a meeting. He made some simple adjustments and then went into the tent. As soon as she entered, her eyes were drawn to three people who looked a little embarrassed. Hatake Tsukumo looked pale and his clothes were tattered, but overall he didn't seem to be in any serious condition. As for the other two, Jiraiya was wrapped in bandages and couldn't even speak clearly. Orochimaru's clothes were covered in blood. Although the wounds were hidden by his clothes, it could be seen that his injuries were not light. "You've never fought before?" Tsunade asked. Hatake Tsukumo smiled bitterly, shook his head, and said with emotion, "The bloodline limit of that Kazekage is too troublesome. My swordsmanship is restricted by him and cannot be fully utilized," and Jiraiya and Orochimaru couldn't even get close, so they could only move around on the side. If they didn't all have spirit beasts, the situation would probably be even worse than this. He was so strong that Tsunade's heart sank after hearing this. He couldn't gain any advantage even when fighting 1 against 3, which showed how strong he was. "We need to ask Konoha for help and send in top combat forces," Tsunade said after a moment's silence. "The sand ninja alone is so troublesome, not to mention that Hanzo of the Rain Country has yet to make a move. The lack of top combat power is extremely fatal to war." Chapter 106, Reinforcements, Hokage and number 039's appreciation. Tsunade's words made sense. Hatake Tsukumo nodded slightly and said, "If we are alone at the moment, we will be very passive. We must ask for help. Salamander Hanzo didn't show up before, but it's inevitable that he won't next time. We can't bet on that possibility," Orochimaru added with a pale face. "After 2 wars, the troops suffered heavy losses, and there are still a large number of wounded who need timely treatment. We need to send these ninjas back to the village as quickly as possible." Hatake Tsukumo nodded, agreeing with what he said, then summarized the battle situation, mentioned the needs at the end, and then had someone take them back to the village. After doing all this, he asked Yutarashi Shikiseo, "How is Zhenhuang? Is his injury stable?" Materashi Shikiseo showed a look of relief and said, "Fortunately, Chiao's punch only made him lose his fighting ability, but did not kill him. Otherwise, the situation of Zhenhuang will be even worse than it is now." "That's good," Hatake Tsukumo nodded. "Let him go back to Konoha to recuperate after that." "Yeah," Yutarashi Shikiseo heaved a sigh of relief. It would be better for Zhenhuang to go back, as she can't help here. This time when he met Chiao, her terrifying strength made him suddenly wake up. He secretly made up his mind to train hard and strive to break through to the cage level as soon as possible. The Sand Ninja took the initiative to attack twice, and they are obviously confident. Although they didn't gain any advantage in both times, the Rain Ninja are still watching closely. "We can't be careless. The number of patrol teams will be doubled." Recently, Hatake Tsukumo was not worried about the Sand Ninja, but about the Rain Country, which was neighboring Konoha. Although the country was small and weak, it had a man named Hanzo of the Salamander. According to the existing information, his strength is that of a cage-level ninja, and now in the Konoha camp, he is the only cage-level person. Top combat power often determines the outcome of a war, and Konoha is now at a great disadvantage. "Understood," everyone said in unison, except Jiraiya, who was wrapped in bandages and unable to speak. Tsunade then brought up another thorny issue, that is, the Sand Ninjas like to use poison, and most of the casualties in Konoha were caused by toxins. This is a problem. It can't always be like this. Hatake Tsukumo lowered his head and thought. Orochimaru chuckled and said to Tsunade, "Tsunade, you have been studying medical ninjutsu, so you should know something about poison." Hatake Tsukumo's eyes lit up. "Yes, isn't there an expert sitting right here? Why go far away?" Facing everyone's gaze, Tsunade gritted her teeth and said, "Research is fine, but I'm still needed on the front battlefield." Before she could finish, Hatake Tsukumo interrupted her with a wave of his hand, giving her a reassurance, "It's okay. The Sand Ninja just fought a battle and suffered more casualties than us. They need to rest for a short period of time, so a major war should not break out during this period of time." Hearing this, Tsunade no longer had any worries and readily agreed. After making preparations, she began to research the antidote. After some discussion, everyone dispersed and went about their own business, and the Sand Ninja did just as they expected, quietly resting and licking their wounds, while waiting for reinforcements from the Rain Country. After a period of peace passed, reinforcements from Konoha arrived, bringing 2,000 ninjas, and Hoshino Kaede also sent Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo over. Both of them are at the cage level, and their arrival instantly narrowed the gap between the two sides. Hatake Tsukumo was overjoyed. He thought that sending one person would be enough, but unexpectedly, Hoshino Kaede waved his hand and sent one more person. This made Konoha's top combat force wealthy. "Tsukumo, thank you for holding on for so long," Sarutobi Hiruzen said kindly. Hatake Tsukumo quickly responded respectfully, "Elder Sarutobi, this is all for Konoha. It's not hard. Normally, as the commander-in-chief, he has absolute power and does not need to be so respectful, but because of Kaede Hoshino, Hatake Tsukumo has known Sarutobi Hiruzen since childhood. They have close contacts and a close relationship, and he is also an elder. This is why Hatake Tsukumo is so respectful." Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hand, indicating that there was no need for this. "You are the commander-in-chief. We will listen to you no matter what you do. Lord Hokage sent us here just to avoid a gap in top combat power. We won't worry about the rest." Sarutobi Hiruzen put himself in a very positive position and did not intend to take advantage of his seniority. Even Danzo, who had been silent on the side, agreed with his words. They are at the peak of their strength, and they are not stupid. They know what to touch and what not to touch. Besides, they have to have the courage to do that. Everyone in Konoha knows Kaede Hoshino's temper. Anyone who dares to drag his feet on important matters is like an old man eating arsenic, seeking death. Hatake Tsukumo naturally understood the deeper meaning of the words and his smile widened. "Thank you, two elders. Since others have made it clear, I have to respond as well." After the two finished their conversation, they smiled at each other, instantly understood each other, and then changed the subject. During this period, according to reports from scouts, the Rain Ninja has arrived, and that Salamander Hanzo is expected to have arrived as well. Yurei Shikiseo was concise and to the point, simplifying the information and picking out some important points to talk about. "Hanzo? He's not a simple guy," Sarutobi Hiruzen chuckled. "Hokage mentioned that specifically before I left." Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but become curious, as it was very rare to be noticed by Zengai Feng. Sarutobi Hiruzen did not keep the suspense any longer and told Kaede Hoshino's original words, "Hanzo the Salamander is a tyrant. He dares to risk offending Konoha and form an alliance with the Sand Ninja. He must be either very powerful or he is conceited. However, I am more inclined to the former. If I estimate his strength correctly, he is a bit stronger than Hiruzen." The original words were fully restored, and everyone present was stunned for a long time. Then everyone came to their senses and took a breath of cold air. Yutara Shikiseo smacked his lips and said, "Is it so horrible? The teacher hasn't even seen it, but you've given such a review. You're not lying to us, are you?" But as soon as he finished speaking, Hatake Tsukumo slapped him in the face and glared at him. "What are you talking about? Hokage-sama never jokes." But having said that, Hatake Tsukumo still looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen, hoping to get confirmation. The always silent Danzo spoke up at this time. "There is not much information about Hanzo, except that he is good at using poison. It's definitely not for nothing to get praise from the Hokage, so you must be careful." It was rare to see Danzo being so cautious, and Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but take a few more glances. Feeling Sarutobi Hiruzen's gaze, Danzo snorted and said dissatisfiedly, "Hiruzen, I won't stop for a moment. Information is very important at all times." Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head. After so many years, he still had the temper of a child and always wanted to compete with him. As soon as they heard the word poison, everyone's eyes turned to Tsunade again. After all, the antidotes used in recent days were all developed by Tsunade. Chapter 107 The Secret of Village Building. Tsunade spread her hands helplessly, knowing that she couldn't escape, and was still thinking about whether she could take a break, but she was still noticed. "I remember when I was a kid, Hokage mentioned Hanzo's poison. Basically, the antidote is not very effective. It can only alleviate the problem, not cure it. Even if it would be impossible to research a poison of that level in a short period of time." Her words poured a bucket of cold water on everyone. chilling them to the core. Orochimaru thought for a while and said, "Then let the three of us deal with Hanzo. Tsunade's antidote can provide some relief for a while." Without waiting for anyone to persuade her, Tsunade waved her fist, looking full of fighting spirit. "Okay, let me see how powerful the Hanzo that my brother described is." His eyes were full of fighting spirit and he looked heroic. Seeing this, Hatake Tsukumo had no choice but to do as he said, and then looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen. "Then I'll leave the Fengiying in the hands of you two. My swordsmanship is really restricted too much? If I continue to fight, I will be at a great disadvantage." Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded. Magnetic escape technique was indeed very limited when used against swordsman masters. "Leave it to us and make sure the Kazekage doesn't get away." He did not say defeat. After all, no one can guarantee that he can defeat them. There is no such thing as possibility in war, only certainty. "Very good, the final battle is about to come. Everyone must be prepared. I hope to see you all again when the war is over," Hatake Tsukumo said with a smile. Everyone smiled at each other, and immediately understood. In Konoha village, Kid Hoshino stood on top of the Hokage rock, feeling the breeze on her face. This is his 46th time standing here. Whenever he has time, he will come here and stand for a while looking from a high place. The eyes fall on the interior of the village, which is a peaceful scene. Smoke from cooking fires rose in the air. Even though we were in a state of war, people showed no fear and children were still playing in the streets, enjoying every bit of beauty under the sunshine. Xingai Feng feels proud and satisfied every time he sees this. All these changes happened little by little in his hands, from the first generation's creation to the second generation's inheritance and development, and then to its prosperity in his own hands. Xingai Feng saw every little thing and was overjoyed. "This is the life I long for." A smile appeared unconsciously on Xingai Feng's face. After standing for a while, Narashikazu came to the Hokage rock with an expression that said, "As expected, Luai, the land reform can begin now. Judging by the time, the Sand Ninja side should be over soon." Narashika heard this and showed a trace of worry on his face. He said, "If we start now, there may be some resistance. After all, the outcome of the war is still unknown and the situation is not clear, and some people may resist, which will be very troublesome." Narashikachi continued. The original plan was to use this war to nationalize the land and unify its management. The war reshuffled all forces and interest groups. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xingai Feng took advantage of the opportunity to take back the land, thus laying the foundation for future reforms. "Resist?" Xingai Feng was very disdainful when he heard this word. He looked at him with cold eyes, as if he could penetrate the other soul. Narashikachi's forehead was covered with sweat. He forced himself to look at Hoshino Kaede. The fear that penetrated his soul spread throughout his body. Xingai Feng came up to him and said slowly, "Lu Yi, have you softened your heart? Or have you gone along with him?" As soon as these words were spoken, Naradir fell to his knees in an instant, banging his head on the ground, and spoke tremblingly, "Hokage-sama, Shikachi definitely didn't mean that. It's just that the current progress is a bit too hasty. I'm afraid it will cause some trouble." Even though the cold gaze fell on him, as if it could freeze everything around him, Narashikachi still withstood the pressure and spoke through gritted teeth. Although he was born into a small family, his wise mind allowed him to step out of the circle of the ninja clan and look at things from a broader perspective. When Konoha was first established, it had no funds and the First Hokage was also worried about it at this time. Some officials in the capital of the Fire Nation extended a helping hand to them, provided funds, and helped Konoha obtain legal status. The price is part of Konoha's economic management rights, and Konoha is not allowed to interfere. As the years passed, those officials who remained in Konoha gradually grew bigger and more powerful, and they controlled a large amount of wealth and land. Even the ninja clan has to be tolerant because they have officials from the Fire Nation behind them. No one dares to offend them, and they are very clear-headed, knowing their position and never overstepping it, just making a fortune quietly. Xingai Feng knew very well that this was a time bomb. The more it accumulated, the more dangers it would pose. It had to be wiped out with lightning speed. The Second Ninja World War was the opportunity chosen by Kid Hoshino. Looking at Narashikachi, who was sweating profusely in front of him, Hoshino Kaede's stern face suddenly changed. His cold eyes narrowed and became gentle. He helped Narashikachi up and said to him apologetically, "I'm sorry, Shikachi. I have to make sure I don't make any mistakes, so I decided to test you on impulse. Please forgive me." Hearing this, Narashikachi, who had been in a state of panic, finally breathed a sigh of relief and said with an expression of relief that he had survived a disaster, "Hokage-sama, you're scaring me to death." Seeing this, Hoshino Kaede was embarrassed and apologized again. Narashikachi waved his hands quickly and said, "Hokage-sama, I fully understand your actions. As long as those people are not eliminated, Konoha will never prosper." Seeing Narashikachi like this, Hoshino Kaede felt relieved, but at the same time felt even more guilty. "I secretly decided that I would compensate him well later and would not let him suffer any loss. Don't worry, it won't be long." Although they know the big picture and never interfere with Konoha, people are greedy. When they can't get more benefits, they can't help but reach out to other places. Zangief chuckled, a faint light flickering in his eyes, and there seemed to be thousands of changes in them, which were out of reach. In order to catch them all in one fell swoop, he made all the preparations and just waited for them to surface and take the bait. "What you just said is right. We need to wait a while and make a big fuss about it, otherwise we can't get rid of it." Zangief thought about it and decided to wait for a while. They had plenty of time anyway. Just let the bullet fly for a while, and then hit the fatal position accurately. When Narashikachi heard this, he knew that Hoshino Kaede would slow down and wait for the right time to attack. "Oh, there is one more thing." News came from the front that the Cloud Village and the Rock Village are frequently mobilizing personnel. Narashikachi suddenly remembered something and said, "Is the target Konoha?" asked Hoshino Kaede. He remembered that the two ninja villages were fighting each other, and it should have nothing to do with Konoha for the time being, as he thought. Narashikachi continued, "No, all signs indicate that it shouldn't be Konoha. Keep paying attention." Zangief nodded slightly. "In that case, the Iwagakure and Kumagakure should have been fighting each other. As long as it had nothing to do with Konoha, it was none of his business. He just needed to keep up with the intelligence." Chapter 108 Conspiracy, Secret 1. Just as Hoshino Kaede and Narashikachi were discussing, an undercurrent was slowly flowing beneath the ground of Konoha. The sunlight from the sky cannot penetrate the deep darkness underground. Inside a sealed room, 5 people were sitting in a circle, each with ulterior motives and different expressions on their faces, but none of them showed a greedy and hypocritical look. They are the representatives of the Fire Nation and Konoha, and behind them are the 5 major political families of the Fire Nation. It can be said that half of the political power of the Fire Nation is in their hands, and they have a prominent status and high prestige. Those in Konoha are members of the branch family. After all, the main family has to manage the capital and cannot focus their energy on Konoha. Besides, Konoha cannot be manipulated by political means. What matters more is your strength. Fortunately, Konoha's highest decision-making power cannot be easily corrupted, otherwise Konoha would have fallen into the hands of the Fire Nation long ago. Those who can become Hokage are all powerful people. Standing at a high position, they can see far and will sneer at those so-called temptations. Even the acting Hokage Danzo looked down on them, let alone the official Hokage. Looking at the long-lost faces in front of him, Hatoyama's Hymen sneered in his heart. If Konoha had not been in the war, it is estimated that none of them would have come to him. "You guys are not here to reminisce about the past, right? If you have something to say, just say it. I'm very busy and can't relax all day long." Hatoyama Tomoki made it clear directly that he was too lazy to play along with a few people. The most important thing is to work hard to make money and improve his status in the family. Everything else comes second. Junichiro Koizumi said with a wry smile. "Of course it's something important, a great thing." Hatoyama Tomoki looked at them suspiciously and found that they all seemed eager to make a move, with greed flashing in their eyes from time to time. "Good news? Konoha is at war right now, and martial law has been imposed. Even the merchant caravans have to be searched. I can't think of anything good that will happen for the time being." Junichiro Koizumi smiled without saying anything, his narrow eyes looking at the initiator standing beside him. It was because of him that this gathering could take place. Of course, Hatoyama Tomoki knew what he meant, and then he looked at the person who had been sitting beside him in silence. Yasushi Fukuda folded his arms, looked around at everyone, raised his head slightly, and seemed to enjoy everyone's gaze. After playing tricks for a while, he grinned and said, "Of course it's about making a lot of money. A big customer has entrusted us with a task." "Big customer? Why haven't I heard any news about it?" And Jingche also said with a skeptical tone. "Their respective channels are open, so even if there is a big customer, several people will definitely know about it at the same time. This is also one of the reasons why they can live in peace in Konoha. Everyone makes money together and keeps to themselves. You won't go back on your promise and do something behind the scenes, will you?" Takahashi asked loudly with a stern face, slamming the table. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere suddenly became solemn. The 4 of them looked at Fukuda Yasushi straight, as if they were going to break up with him. If they didn't say anything, Fukuda Yasushi was not in a hurry. He took a sip of tea leisurely, pretending not to see anything and not being anxious at all. Instead, He looked at Takahashi Hajime provocatively. He could tell at a glance what these people were thinking. Questioning was just a cover. In the final analysis, they just wanted to gain more benefits. You are all old foxes. Who are you doing this for? After a long while, still no one said a word. Suddenly Junichiro Koizumi chuckled, breaking the silent atmosphere. Ha ha ha, Fusion, since you are a big customer, I guess you must be making a lot of profit. Introduce some twist too. Don't worry, we won't treat you unfairly. Hearing this, Fukuda Yasushi smiled hypocritically, which was even uglier than crying, but he didn't want to offend anyone because he didn't want to. Koizumi's words made the remaining three people nod their heads. They thought that if they could make a lot of money, giving some benefits would not be a big deal. Everyone would get what they needed. That's great. Fukuda Yasushi raised the corner of his mouth. Originally, he was going to take all the profits for himself, but the amount was too large, even for him. He would feel full in one go. It would be better to get more people to join, so as to gain more benefits and kill two birds with one stone. The agreement was reached. The five people smiled at each other, and then Yasushi Fukuda talked about the requirements of the commission. Chiyo from the Sands village secretly sent someone to find me and said that she was willing to buy war supplies at a price 20% higher than the market price. I want as many as I can get, with no limit on the quantity. They had never expected that it would be this kind of commission. The smiles on the four people's faces froze instantly and then slowly disappeared. Fukuda Yasushi is so bold that he dares to collude with the enemy and sell military supplies. He is so audacious. Fusion, have you ever thought about how big the impact would be if this matter were exposed? Can you afford the consequences? Takahashi was the first to speak, his eyes interrogating. He was still in shock. Consequences? Fukuda Yasushi sneered, seeming to disdain his words. What consequences can there be? The people behind us are not something Konoha can afford to offend. Even if we are discovered, what can they do to us? Besides, we won't give them this opportunity. The route is extremely secret and there is absolutely no possibility of leakage. He was confident and sworn, and didn't think Konoha had the courage to tear its face apart. In his mind, Konoha was just a small village supported by the Fire Nation. Even if the current Hokage has tough means, he is still not up to par and is far inferior to the five major families. Even if the truth is revealed, I can still get away with it. Then I can gain both the money and the people. How can I not be happy? Hearing Fukuda Yasushi's confidence, they couldn't help but hesitate because what Fukuda Yasushi said was what they thought, so it didn't matter even if it was exposed. More importantly, the Sand Ninja gave too much. The price of military supplies in Konoha has risen rapidly compared to the past with another 20% premium. The profit will be even more substantial. Money is attractive and is clearly tempting them. As the saying goes, if a man does not work for himself, he will be punished by heaven and earth. What does Konoha's defeat have to do with him? Thinking of the huge profits, several people were immediately excited, and the scales in their hearts gradually tilted towards money. Fukuda Yasushi looked at the expressions of several people, and when he saw that their hearts were moved, a smile immediately appeared on his face. Sure enough, things turned out just as he expected. These people couldn't resist the temptation in the end. Okay, we'll accept this commission. The few of them persisted for a while, then their defense collapsed and they immediately agreed. Fukuda Yasushi laughed and said, Happy cooperation X4. Just as everyone was celebrating, a tiny, invisible flying insect slowly flew out and no one noticed anything unusual. The so-called complacency refers to the present moment. Although the secret room is highly concealed, it is not impeccable at this moment. Their conversation was heard word for word by the ninjas from the Aburim clan, who were sent to keep an eye on them. It can be said that there is always a loophole. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109. Play the long game and catch big fish. Fusion, you did a good job. They really took the bait. Aburim's Haimin chuckled, with a cold look in his eyes. What a bunch of ignorant people. They think Konoha is a soft persimmon that can be easily bullied. Master Patriarch, should we take action? Military supplies must not fall into enemy hands, Aburim Fuda said anxiously. When he heard the news, he was extremely shocked and couldn't imagine that someone would dare to do this. Haha, don't be nervous. Lord Hokage has already anticipated this. You continue to lurk around them and report their movements at any time. Aburim's Haimin chuckled, showing a smile that showed everything was under control. and waved his hand to let Aburame Futa go down and continue tracking. Want to compete with Konoha? How ridiculous, Aburame's Hyming sneered. These people probably only have money in their eyes. They have fallen into the money trap and their minds are not clear. Tisk, but it does give a great opportunity, Aburame Hyming thought. I'm really worried that there's no reason. It's so thoughtful of you to give it to us for free. The more he thought about it, the faster his shoulders shook. He really couldn't hold it back anymore, but soon, he got up and headed for the Hokage building. It would be best for him to report this matter and not delay too long. I came to the office and met Feng Xingai. Hokage, those guys are taking action. Without further ado, Aburame Hyming recounted their conversation word for word. Bang! The tabletop couldn't withstand the force and broke into pieces, scattering everywhere. Xingai Feng was furious and smashed the table with a slap. His eyes flashed with ferocity, like a ferocious beast waiting to devour its prey. Asshole! His chest heaved, and he was obviously very angry. I thought they would use other means to make money, but I never thought it would be this way. What's the difference between this and collaborating with the enemy? They even dare to do such a thing. Won't they be lawless in the future? Xingai Feng was furious, but felt he had no place to vent his anger, so he kicked a broken table a few more times to vent his anger. Poor table, I didn't mess with anyone. Aburame's Hyming hid aside, trembling with fear, with his head lowered and his eyes fixed on the soles of his feet, as if he could stare a hole through them. You can't see me, you can't see me, he prayed in his heart, not wanting to face the exploding Feng Xingai. Unfortunately, the more this happens, the more trouble will come to you. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in front of his eyes, and he saw that Xingai Feng's anger had not subsided, and his angry eyes were staring at him with a gulp. Aburame's Hyming swallowed lightly and said with a dry mouth, Hokage-sama, calm down. It's not worth being so angry about them. Perhaps it was the trigger of the verbal attack. After hearing his words, her anger gradually subsided, and Xingai Feng also realized that there was something wrong with his behavior. He placed his hands in front of him and pressed them down, as if to manually suppress his anger and calm his excited mood. Sorry, Hyming, I lost my composure just now. I can't control my emotions. After the counseling, Xingai Feng smiled at him apologetically and returned to his usual kind self. Aburame's Hyming smiled awkwardly and waved his hands, saying, It's okay, it's okay. It's normal for the Hokage to be angry. It's normal. Xingai Feng smiled again, exhaled deeply, sat down on the only remaining intact chair, and rubbed his eyebrows. Chiao of the Sand Village, the wife of the first Hokage? It seems like she knows a lot, even about such secret matters as Konoha. To think that he has a connection with those parasites. We still need to crack down on Konoha. There are too many traitors. As he spoke, Kid Hoshino's face darkened. There are traitors in every village, and Konoha is no exception, but he would never allow a traitor to harm Konoha during wartime. This was absolutely not allowed. Guji, Xingai Feng shouted, and a figure appeared in front of him instantly. Hoshino Kaede looked at Maruboshi Kasuke and said seriously, Tell Yamanaka Genichi to clean up those traitors and spies for me. Maruboshi Kasuke didn't say much. After hearing the order, he disappeared from the spot to find Yamanaka Genichi. As for those termites, Hyming, you take 2 Enbu teams and watch them from a distance. If they make a deal, detain them immediately. I want to catch him red-handed. Then I'll see if anyone dares to plead for him. Hoshino Kaede gave orders in an orderly manner. They had taken root too deeply in Konoha, so even if they had to clear them out, they had to ensure a fatal blow. Many families in Konoha have had dealings with them. If the evidence is insufficient or not enough to convict them, it would be tantamount to letting the tiger go back to the mountains. Yes, Lord Hokage. Aburame Hyming straightened her back and answered with a little excitement. Their Aburame clan is finally being taken seriously, and you can see that other clans have their own places. The Aburame clan has been forgotten. Although their presence is indeed low, they can't be ignored. Fortunately, the opportunity finally came to the Oil Girl clan, and this time they must do things beautifully. Aburame Hyming was extremely excited, and was determined to catch the perpetrators red-handed so that the Hokage could see that they were also capable. Go and do it. Xingai Feng waved his hand. Everything was ready. It all depended on when they could start. Oh, by the way, have someone bring a table over for me. As soon as Aburame's Hyming took a step, he heard Hoshino Kaede's words. Looking at the debris on the ground, Yum's Hyming couldn't help but remain silent, and even quickened his pace. I felt like if I stayed any longer, I would become one of the debris. A treacherous undercurrent swept through Konoha, and on a moonlit night, he sat on a tree, holding a piece of grass in his mouth, frowning. Are the Anbu moving too intensively? From a distance, you can see dozens of people jumping around on the roof, as light as a swallow and without making any sound. He was very confused. It would have been normal some time ago, but now they had a great advantage in the war with the sand ninjas, so they shouldn't be mobilized so frequently. Teacher, you are just too sensitive and worrying about nothing. Bai Xiaoyu also took a look, but then complained he felt that the teacher was just bored and was very unhappy. Hey, you little brat, you're really brave. You still have energy left, so you don't need to rest. Just keep practicing. Yu Guangyu gave him a cold look, then considerately cancelled his rest time, under the pretext that the more practice, the more gains. Bai Xiaoyu didn't say anything after hearing that, but just silently said in his heart that you are a small-minded person after dealing with the disciples. Yu Guangyu's mind wandered. He felt that he had been too idle recently, and he felt a little itchy when he saw the actions of the Anbu. Thinking of this, he glanced at Bai Xiaoyu and nodded secretly. We have handed in everything we can in a short period of time. It's time to leave. I wonder how Zixio and Zhenhong are doing. If it weren't for you, I would have gone to the battlefield a long time ago. Now is the perfect time. Just do what you want to do. Yu Guanggai disappears instantly and goes to the Hokage building. Bai Xiaoyu faced the training with a bitter look on his face and didn't even notice that the person had left. Chapter 110, Respond and Hit. Zing Gaifeng supported his chin with one hand, rubbed his eyebrows in distress, and was holding a letter tightly. It was the letter written by Hatake Tsukumo at the front line, and the content inside was the source of his distress. Who should we send? It's worth thinking about who is the most suitable person in Konoha. Hoshino Fen was undecided. The letter had just been delivered. It took several days to deliver the letter. The technology in the ninja world is very confusing. Even Orochimaru has developed such abnormal technology as the ability to clone humans, but sending letters still requires manpower. The efficiency is so low that it makes Zing Gaifeng puzzled. But what is important now is not to think about this, but to find the right people to go to the front line. The seriously injured soldiers on the front line need good medical treatment, but the simple camps naturally cannot provide it. So Hatake Tsukumo wanted to send all these people back to Konoha for recuperation, but Konoha is currently short of staff. On the one hand, it has to maintain the operation of Konoha, and on the other hand, it has to spare manpower to keep an eye on those parasites. Thinking about it this way, there are currently no suitable personnel available. Alice, there are still too few people. Zing Gaifeng never thought that the population would be so small. If this had happened in his previous life, he would have wished there were as few people as possible. Tap, 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 fingers tapped gently on the new table, and the crisp sound echoed in the room. Zing Gaifeng's brows were squeezed together, and his face was full of worry, as if there was an unsolvable knot in his heart. With a click, the door was pushed open from the outside. When Zing Gaifeng saw the person coming in, his eyes lit up, like a searchlight at full power. He felt quite uncomfortable with the bright moonlight night. Hey, teacher, you, don't look at me like that, I always feel it's weird. Yu Guanggai put his left fist against his mouth and coughed lightly, saying rather awkwardly. Zing Gaifeng's face suddenly turned dark. Weird? Why don't you take your eyes off me? Who is weird? I think you're itching for trouble, Zing Gaifeng said softly, and began to clench his fists to satisfy him. Teacher, I have something important to tell you. Seeing this, Yu Guangyi hurriedly spoke. Zing Gaifeng stopped what he was doing, raised his eyebrows, and said suspiciously, will you have something serious to do? How is you teaching that kid? He knew this disciple too well. He had a lively personality and often got into trouble when he was a child. He got into trouble a lot, but because of this, most of his attention was on him. The saying that the crying child gets the milk is absolutely true. Of course everything went well. I liked that child very much, otherwise I would not have accepted him as my disciple. When talking about Bai Xiaoyu, a look of pride appeared on Yu Guanggai's face. It was not difficult to see that he was very satisfied with the training during this period. Not only that, he has qualities that some people don't have, and this is also his shining point. I can tell by looking at your expression. Zing Gaifeng has a good impression of this disciple. At least he is much better than this naughty kid. He would also pay attention to it when he was free on weekdays, and generally it was pretty good. Moonlight Knight scratched his head, then remembered what he came here for, and said, Teacher, I have to go to the front line. You needs to calm down for a short time, so, you know. Yu Guanggai rubbed his hands with a flattering expression on his face. Among the three, he understood Zing Gaifeng's temper the best. Of course, the other two were not as thick-skinned as him. Zing Gaifeng shook his head helplessly, but even if he didn't say it, he would let him go. After all, there was really no one else. Sure, there are some wounded soldiers coming back from there, so I'd better go there. When Yu Guangyi heard this, he instantly became visibly excited and said happily, "Great, I finally have a place to use my skills." Seeing him jumping around like that, Xing Gaifeng looked serious and scolded him, "Look at you, do you think it's fun to go to the battlefield?" Zhenhong was seriously injured on the front line. "Do you want to be like him?" Moonlight Knight was stunned for a moment, then reacted and asked hurriedly, "Shinku is injured? How could it be? With his strength, who among the Sand Ninjas can beat him?" The tone was very straightforward, almost treating the Sand Ninja as a soldier. However, Xing Gaifeng was extremely dissatisfied with this. People can have proud bones, but they cannot be arrogant. You are confused. The Sand Ninja is one of the 5 major ninja villages, and its own strength is quite good. What do you think of them, compared to the strength of both sides? Shinku is only an elite Chunin, and there are cage-level people above him. Is it your turn to look down on him? Xing Gaifeng started to talk and scold Yu Guangyi, which made his face turn red and he lowered his head deeply. These angry words instantly shattered the pride in Yu Guangyi's heart, leaving nothing behind. Yes, elite Chunin sounds powerful, but facing the cage level, they are just bigger ants. Makoto was unlucky. She ran into Chiao from the Sand Village. Fortunately, she didn't dare to kill him. Otherwise, you can just wait to see his corpse. Xing Gaifeng was angry at his disciple for not fighting back. He didn't expect that his disciple would look down on his opponent so much. Yu Guangyi also knew that there was something wrong with his mentality, and quickly reflected, "It is my disciple who is arrogant. Please calm down, master." HMPH. Xing Gaifeng still had a bad expression on his face and stared at him. On a moonlit night, he shrank his neck like a turtle, not daring to even breathe. After a long while, there was a click, and Xing Gaifeng put down the teacup inside. "It's also my fault. You've been too lucky these years and haven't suffered any major setbacks. In that case, it's not bad to go to the front line. War is a good training opportunity for ninjas. Go there and experience it for yourself and change your mindset." While saying this, Hoshino Kaede's eyes were always on Yu Guangyi. Feeling Xing Gaifeng's gaze, Yu Guangyi immediately straightened his back, nodded repeatedly, with a serious expression on his face. Xing Gaifeng nodded in satisfaction, thought about it again, and made a decision after a long pause, saying, "When you leave, take my apprentice with you, so that he can also feel the cruelty of war." Yu Guangyi said blankly, not reacting for a moment. Xing Gaifeng didn't see it, and said to himself, "That kid is obsessed with revenge, so let him see the cruel side of the world." But, Yu Guangyi hesitated to speak. To be honest, he didn't want Bai Shiayu to get rid of the cruel side of the ninja so early. Xing Gaifeng saw the concerns in his heart, looked at him expressionlessly and said, "You should know that this is inevitable. It's just a matter of time." Yu Guangyi clenched his fists, but then loosened them weakly. Seeing that he still couldn't make a decision, Xing Gaifeng shook his head and sighed. If he wants the power for revenge, he must face cruelty. Wasn't it the same when you were little? The first time you killed someone, you vomited the most and didn't eat for several days, but you managed to get through it in the end. Chapter 111, Time and Space Seal. Xing Gaifeng's words made Yu Guangyi's face freeze, and he felt a little embarrassed, as if his secret had been exposed. Besides, sending him to the battlefield doesn't mean he's going to die. "Am I so unreliable?" Xing Gaifeng said while holding his forehead. After hearing what he said, Yu Guangyi's heart gradually relaxed and he let out a long sigh. "Teacher, why didn't you say it earlier? Why did you have to leave your words half-heartedly?" After getting the guarantee, Yu Guangyi's expression improved, and then he muttered in dissatisfaction. As soon as he finished speaking, Xing Gaifeng disappeared in an instant, and appeared behind him the next second, giving him a hard slap on the face. "Ouch! It hurts." The force was quite strong. Yu Guangyi covered his head with his hands. Tears were faintly visible in his eyes and he grimaced. "Go and bring you here, hurry up." Xing Gaifeng glanced at him, and seeing that he hadn't recovered yet, he asked, "Do you want to do it again?" After hearing this, Yu Guangyi immediately disappeared from the spot, because any hesitation would be disrespectful to himself. "You're still so impatient. You still haven't changed." Xing Gaifeng returned to his seat, chuckled and shook his head, but it could be seen that he was in a good mood. The scene changed and came to Yu Guangyi. After slipping out of the building, he rushed to Bai Shiayu as fast as lightning. Bai Shiayu looked at the teacher who suddenly appeared and was so scared that he trembled and his heart almost jumped out of his body. "Teacher, could you please stop making so much noise? Are you a child?" After Bai Shiayu calmed down, he stared at him with a resentful look. From what he said, This often happens on moonlit nights. Oh, it's okay for boys to be scared. Yu Guangyi looked indifferent. It was not the first time. Don't worry about that for now. Come with me. Lord Hokage has something to talk to you about. After saying that, without waiting for Bai Shiayu to be curious, he directly put him under his arm, picked him up and left. Teacher, let me go. It's so embarrassing. Bai Shiayu's face turned red. He was no longer a 3-year-old child. Moonlight Knight patted his head, suppressed his laughter and said, okay, if you speak any louder, you will lose face. Hearing this, Bai Shiayu seemed to be choked by his food and closed his mouth silently. This is too abominable. Is there any teacher like this? He suddenly regretted becoming a disciple. Bai Shiayu was angrily and turned his head to the side, constantly condemning Yu Guanggai's actions in his heart at an angle that he couldn't see. Yu Guangyi's mouth corners slightly raised and a smile appeared on his face. The effect is good. The little guy is actually shy now. We need to work harder. Although Bai Shiayu's behavior changed after he became his disciple, he always had a stern face and trained seriously without ever smiling. This made Yu Guangyi very worried, so he decided to stimulate it appropriately. Now it seems that there is at least a response. A smile flashed across his face, and Yu Guangyi immediately said to him, You really want revenge, right? These words made Bai Shiayu tremble all over. His face became distorted, and hatred clearly left traces on his face. Moonlight Knight felt the sudden change in the child under his arms and couldn't help but sigh. It seems that this has become the little guy's obsession. It's not easy to raise a child these days. After a pause, he continued. There is an opportunity right now, but it depends on whether you are willing. I do. Bai Shiayu blurted out as soon as Yu Guanggai finished speaking. Without thinking for a second, Moonlight Knight was silent for a moment, jumping on the roof. Neither of them spoke for a while, and the atmosphere seemed a little stiff. The only sound I could hear was the wind whistling past my ears. After a long while, Yu Guangyi finally uttered one word, okay. Bai Shiayu clenched his fists tightly, and a look of excitement flashed across his face, but then he heard Yu Guanggai say again, I'll accompany you. In just one sentence and 3 words, Moonlight Knight didn't say much, just expressed his attitude. Shiraishi's eyes turned red, he pursed his lips and said nothing, and the two of them arrived at the Hokage building. Yu Guanggai put Bai Shiayu down, squatted down and straightened his clothes, and reminded him, today is the first time you and the teacher officially meet, remember not to be rude. Bai Shiayu stretched his neck and looked around. And when he heard the teacher's words, he immediately nodded seriously. After tidying up, Yu Guangyu motioned for him to follow and then walked towards the office. After knocking 3 times, he pushed the door open and walked in. After getting a response, Bai Shiayu walked in nervously. The decoration inside was simple and plain, but he could feel the solemn atmosphere. Greetings, Lord Hokage. Bai Shiayu was affected by the atmosphere and seemed a little restrained, with his movements a little stiff. Zingai Feng couldn't help laughing and said, you bit me when we first met, why are you so reserved now? Bite. Yu Guangyi was shocked and looked at his disciple suddenly, with curiosity in his eyes, as if to say, is it true? Bai Shiayu was extremely embarrassed, her face slightly reddened, and when she thought of what she had done before, she wished she could crawl into a crack in the ground. After a few teasing words, Bai Shiayu relaxed a lot and his tense muscles relaxed, and Zingai Feng got to the point. Yi has already told you, I want you to go to the battlefield to experience it. How can you become a qualified ninja without going through the baptism of blood? Hearing this, Bai Shiayu opened his mouth slightly with a conflicted look, as if he was considering whether to say it or not. Zingai Feng knew what he was thinking at a glance, so he said, I have already found out the person you want to avenge, and it happens to be the one I want to deal with. When you come back, I think the matter will be settled. After hearing this, Bai Shiayu's body trembled slightly, his nails dug into his flesh, but he didn't feel any pain at all. I promise. Bai Shiayu did not hesitate. The opportunity was right in front of him and he would never give up as expected. Hoshino Kaede nodded, touched his chin as if thinking, then stood up and walked in front of him. You lack some experience in the battlefield, so I'll give you a guarantee. After saying that, Zingai Feng stretched out 2 fingers, and the power of time instantly enveloped him, and then under his control, it condensed on his fingertips and the deep blue light merged into his forehead and turned into a seal, remaining on his forehead. This is a time and space seal that I created. If a crisis occurs, it will be released instantly, sealing off everything within 10 meters. Zingai Feng explained to him the function of the seal. With a casual glance, he saw Yu Guanggai's eager look. What are you envious of? This is for my apprentice and grandson, there is no share for you. Zingai Feng said unhappily. Bai Shiayu touched his forehead curiously, and a cold touch spread to his hands. It was a very subtle feeling, just like carrying an ice cube with him, but if you perceive it more deeply, you will find that there is a powerful force hidden in it, which is profound and mysterious. After some explanation, the two left. Chapter 112, The Sand Ninja and Number 039, Urgency. On the way, Yu Guanggai did not hide his envious gaze, which was always on Bai Shiayu's forehead. Bai Shiayu's mouth twitched, and he said helplessly, "Teacher, can you look ahead? Be careful not to bump into people." "Oh," Yu Guangyi agreed verbally, but just gave him a symbolic glance and then continued to look at his forehead in response. Bai Shiayu complained, "It's just a seal, what's so special about it?" Moonlight Knight patted his shoulder and widened his eyes. "Strange? My God, this thing can save your life at a critical moment. The teacher didn't even give it to me when I wanted it. It can only be said that what is easily obtained will not be cherished." Bai Shiayu touched his forehead suspiciously and said, "Save lives? Is it that magical? I can try it next time," Moonlight Knight said without hesitation. "Of course, didn't the teacher also say that if this thing is triggered, everything within 10 meters around it will stop moving? Isn't that amazing? From the ninjutsu I know, no one can do this." "You are lucky." Moonlight Knight's mouth kept chattering, and the envy in his tone became stronger and stronger, as if he had been drooling over it for a long time. After listening to his words, Bai Shiayu seemed to be thinking about something. It seemed that it was indeed an extraordinary thing. After saying this, Yu Guanggai took Bai Shiayu and began to pack their luggage, ready to go to the front line. Along with them went 1,000 Konoha ninjas, all of whom were sent by various families. They were a considerable elite force. Moonlight Knight was appointed captain by the Hokage and led the troops to meet up. Even though he is usually not serious, he can still distinguish the major and minor issues clearly. Unlike his usual casualness, on moonlit nights, his face exudes the aura of an elite John. And then he shouted, "Let's go!" A 1,000-man army left Konoha in a mighty manner. They are all elite troops, so they move very quickly and no one lags behind. Bai Shiai was greatly shocked by this. He was on Yu Guanggai's back at the moment. Due to his young age and slow speed, in order not to slow down the overall progress, Yu Guanggai could only carry him on his back. "Teacher, aren't you tired?" After a whole day of running, Yu Guangyi was just sweating a little, and his breathing was even, without any signs of disorder. This shocked Bai Shiayu so much that he couldn't help but ask a question. "Tired? Haha, that's just the beginning. When we were little, our teachers trained us much harder than this. We didn't even have time to complain." Yu Guangyi's steps remained steady, and he consciously controlled his breathing rate. When he heard the disciple behind him say something, he chuckled. Bai Shiayu opened his mouth slightly, finding it hard to believe that this was just child's play. If it happened to him, wouldn't he be exhausted to death? Sure enough, strong people do not rely solely on talent. Hard work is the main reason why they continue to become stronger. "Hold on, we need to speed up," Moonlight Knight reminded, and then gestured backwards. In an instant, the overall speed of the troops began to increase steadily. A few days later, they finally arrived at the Konoha camp. Before that, Hatake Tsukumo had already received the news and was waiting outside early. "Lord Tsukumo." Yu Guanggai put down Bai Shiayu and walked straight towards Hatake Tsukumo. Instead of reminiscing about the past, he directly addressed him by his position. "The battlefield has its own rules, and he knows that. Well, you came quite quickly. You're probably worried about Shinku." Hatake Tsukumo nodded and looked at Shiraishi behind him. Intentionally or unintentionally, Moonlight Knight smiled and scratched his head. Worry is part of the reason, but the main reason is that the injured can't wait." Upon hearing this, Hatake Tsukumo's face became even more satisfied. He then looked at Shiraishi and asked, "Why is this child here? Did you ask for it?" "Him?" Yu Guangyi shook his head. "The teacher asked him to do this, saying it was for some training." "Is that so?" Hatake Tsukumo didn't think much about it and then got down to business. "There are currently hundreds of wounded here, and they all need to return to the village to recuperate as soon as possible. The Sand Ninja and the Rain Ninja have made big moves recently. This place could easily become our weak spot." Moonlight nodded in understanding. It was indeed true. If this place was raided, morale would be hit hard. Just as he was about to say something, a shocking explosion sounded, and thick black clouds rolled straight into the sky. The two were shocked. Hatake Tsukumo looked over quickly and found that it was an explosion in the temporary medical treatment center. He understood immediately. He shouted angrily, "Where's the reconnaissance team? We didn't even know the enemy was approaching." Yu Guangyi said in a deep voice, "It's too late to say this now, let's repel the enemy's attack first." After saying that, the two of them rushed over almost at the same time. Bai Shiyu stood there in a daze, at a loss as to what to do. Maruboshi Kasuke, who was sent by Hoshino Kaede, comforted him. "It's okay, adjust your breathing and calm yourself down." After taking a few deep breaths, Bai Shiyu calmed down and looked at the source of the explosion. "Nothing will happen, right?" Maruboshi Kasuke patted his head and said, "Don't worry, it's probably a raiding force of the Sand Ninjas. There won't be too many of them." His prediction was accurate. When Hatake Tsukumo and Tsukiyoshi rushed over, the battle had already come to an end. The few remaining people were surrounded, and when they saw that they were powerless, they drank poison and committed suicide. "He is a death warrior," Yu Guangyi frowned and said. "Very decisive." Hatake Tsukumo said to the person in charge, "Here, is the damage serious?" "No one died, all were seriously injured," the man said. After hearing this, Hatake Tsukumo's heart instantly tightened and he looked at Yu Guangyi. "Make a feint to the east and attack in the west." A sentence popped up in my mind at the same time. Sure enough, the next moment the two thought of it, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Denzo came over with dark faces. "Shuameo, the supplies have been burned, and half of the food and fodder is gone." The news was like a bolt from the blue, striking everyone's heart. Moonlight Knight thought for a moment and said, "The supplies I brought should last for a while." Hatake Tsukumo shook his head. "It seems that they came prepared. This is forcing them to fight a decisive battle according to the original plan. They had a village at their back, so the transportation of supplies was easy, and the longer it took, the more advantageous it would be." The Sand Ninja originally used the Rain Country as a springboard, and transportation was extremely inconvenient. Coupled with the weather in the Rain Country itself, it was like adding insult to injury. But it also shows that the Sand Ninja can't wait any longer. "Let's transfer the wounded as soon as possible and resolve the worries later." Hatake Tsukumo made a prompt decision and decided not to discuss it for the time being. It must not affect the morale of the troops. After a busy period, the wounded were finally traded. Yu Guangyi sent 500 people to escort them back to Konoha to ensure their safety. Afterwards, everyone came into the tent. Bai Shiyu was not qualified to enter, but Hatake Tsukumo allowed him to stay. But there is a saying that goes, "Where there are people, there is the world." The people who were here originally had no objection. After all, it was the commander-in-chief who gave the order. But the senior ninja who had just entered the family disliked Bai Shiyu very much and thought that he had entered through the back door. Chapter 113, Stalemate, Procrastination. "Alice, anyone can come in here now. A little kid actually sits with us." A senior ninja from a small family shook his head, seeming to feel that this was an insult to himself. "Who says it isn't true? The strong are respected. We are able to sit here because we have withstood the test," someone echoed, thinking that this was the way it should be. Stop talking. He must have some backers to be here. Be careful not to be hated by them." Some people were smart enough to react and give a reminder, and then they remained silent. As soon as Bai Shiyu came in, he heard a group of people whispering there. Some were ignoring him, while others were whispering. But all of them revealed one meaning: he was the one who came in through the back door. It seemed as if Hatake Tsukumo didn't hear anything. He sat in his seat with his eyes closed, as if he was in a trance. Even Moonlight Knight had a smile on his face, but he had no intention of stopping it. Bai Shiyu raised his eyebrows, walked up to the person who was gossiping, stood in front of him, and looked at him straight. "Kid, you're not convinced, right? Do you want to fight with me?" the man in front of him said provocatively, standing up and looking down at him. The height difference made Bai Shiyu naturally shorter than him, and a fierce murderous intent immediately rushed towards him, lingering around him for a long time. "Those who can sit here are all jonin, people who have experienced blood and fire, with the blood of enemies on their hands, and are truly top ninjas." Faced with so many powerful and murderous people, Bai Shiyu stubbornly refused to show his cowardice. He stood where he was and faced the thick murderous intent. His body and mind seemed to have fallen into purgatory, unable to extricate himself at this moment. Bai Shiyu felt as if he was in a terrible purgatory and could not escape. This tremendous pressure from the mental level far exceeds the physical pain. After all, with his current strength, he is not even considered a Jonin. However, at this moment, they have to resist the terrifying aura emitted by the senior ninjas, which is an unimaginable torture for ordinary people. If it were someone else, they would have already fallen into coma. As time slowly passed, Bai Shiyu's face turned red, and sweat fell on the ground like rain, forming small potholes filled with crystal clear water droplets. At some point, the tent fell into dead silence. The only sound was the creaking sound of Bai Shiau's teeth clenching. No other sound could be heard over and over again. The sound was clearly audible, as if proving to everyone, I am definitely not a burden. Suddenly, the silence was broken by someone's chuckle. Well, I do have some perseverance, but kid, perseverance is the most useless thing here. Only strength is everything. It seems to be a ridicule, but if you think about it carefully, it is actually a subtle praise for him. It's just not very direct. With a thud, Bai Shiau reached his limit and knelt on the ground. His back was already wet with sweat and he looked exhausted. What do you think, everyone? How does this kid compare to those Jinan? Yu Guanggai said at this time, with a hint of pride in his eyes. It was obvious that he was very satisfied with his disciple. The group of Jonin looked around, and no one spoke for a moment, but the contempt in their eyes had completely disappeared at this time. And Uchiha Jonin said, it's just barely qualified, barely enough to stand here. As soon as Uchiha said this, it expressed the opinions of all the Jonin. Yu Guanggai smiled and looked at Bai Shiau. You, get up. You can stay here. You've performed well. Yes, everything that just happened was not only a challenge, but also a test. This is the place for formulating battle plans, and not everyone can come. And Shiraishiyu, who is not even a Jinan, has to obey the crowd even if Hatake Tsukumo gives him a backdoor. And it was obvious that Bai Shiau's performance had impressed them. Hearing this, Bai Shiau silently walked to stand behind Yu Guanggai. He was still a little frightened and needed time to calm down. Seeing that the matter was resolved, Hatake Tsukumo began to talk about business. The Sand Ninja raided the supplies, so they must be anxious. I think they must have disagreements among themselves. Not everyone has the absolute strength like Hoshino Kaede to suppress all opposing voices. After fighting for so long in the Sand Village without seeing any substantial benefits, the morale of the war faction has gradually waned, so they need a battle to decide their life or death. So what does Tsukumo think, we should fight or not? Asked Sarutobi Hirozen. Hatake Tsukumo lowered his head and calculated silently. After a moment's silence, he smiled confidently. No, let's hold on a little longer. With the current food and grass, we can still hold on for some time. If we don't move, the Sand Ninja will lose their composure. It's impossible for the Rain Country to be on the same page with him. Everyone agreed with this and agreed with his idea at the same time. On the other side of the Sand Village, unlike Konoha's calm, the two factions were arguing fiercely. If it weren't for a Feng Ying's mediation, the fight would have broken out long ago. I've said it before, Konoha can't be defeated. You are dragging the Sand Village into the abyss. Humph, what else can we do if we don't fight? We are short of resources and our development is limited. The supplies provided by the Wind Country are not even enough to fill our teeth. If we don't fight, will we be like turtles hiding in their shells? Oh, look at what we have gained. Konoha was well defended, but we didn't even get a fly. What good is there in just wasting time like this? The Peace Faction's fatal words left the War Faction speechless. The fact is, just as the Peace Faction said, after fighting for so long, there is no benefit at all, and this war is a failure. But even so, the War Faction remained stubborn and refused to admit defeat, and started a quarrel with them again. The Kazakage slammed the table, interrupting the quarrel between the two parties. It's too late to say this now. If we stop now, the losses will be even greater. Our agreement with the Rain Ninja is still there. If we unilaterally tear it up, have you thought about the consequences? Chiao nodded in agreement and said, there is no way back. We can only fight until the end. At this time, someone said worriedly, but our supplies and food are almost running out, and the transport team has not arrived yet. War is a test of the strength of both sides. Although the Sand Ninjas have been accumulating strength for decades, Konoha is no pushover. After years of development, it has accumulated a profound foundation, which is not comparable to the Sand Village. Chiao's eyes flickered and she smiled. I had expected this and have already sent people to buy it. Konoha is not as peaceful as we thought. The Kazakage's smile deepened when he heard this. Chiao had told him some secrets of Konoha before, so he knew what she was talking about. Yes, the supplies will arrive later, but just in case, we need to end the war as soon as possible. Although we burned some of their supplies, they still have more than us. I'm worried that if they avoid fighting, we will be in a very passive position. The Rain Ninjas are also pushing for it. Hanzo is not someone who is easy to get along with. Chapter 114, The Crying Country, the eve of the final battle. The Rain Country, a country sandwiched between three countries, has a humid climate and it rains all year round. This special geographical location makes the ninja world called the Rain Country. The country that cries the gloomy sky all day long has kept the country in shadow for a long time, and the sun seems to have no favors on this land. Even so, there are still people here who love it. It's raining again. Salamander Hanzo stood at the top and looked out. Tiny raindrops continued to drip all over his body as usual. Good news. Master Hanzo, I just learned that the Sand Ninja raided the Konoha camp and burned some of the supplies. As he was expressing his feelings, someone behind him hurriedly spoke. However, this news did not make Hanzo happy at all. His face remained calm, as if he did not think this was good news at this time. He was full of pride and confidence, believing that he could lead the Rain country to become the 6th largest country in the ninja world, and this confidence comes from his mind and strength. Is the stalemate over? The Sand Ninja is really unreliable. I have to take action myself. There was a cold light flashing in Hanzo's eyes, and his almost arrogant aura became more and more intense. A strong wind swept around, blowing the tiny raindrops everywhere. He knew very well that just some supplies were not enough. Konoha had changed a lot and had a deep foundation. It was impossible for it to be dragged down. Only they would be dragged down. Lord Hanzo is unparalleled in the world. How can a mere sand ninja compare to you? The man behind him said with fanaticism in his eyes. Everyone in the Rain country is his fanatical follower. The corners of Hanzo's mouth lifted slightly, then disappeared, and it was obvious that he enjoyed the flattery very much, but he did not lose his mind. He raised his head and looked in the direction of Konoha village with deep fear in his eyes. Unparalleled in the world? Haha, I am not worthy of such a title. The Hokage of Konoha village is probably the real unparalleled one. The second Raikage who crushed the Hidden Cloud village with just one move. Even he couldn't do that. I'm afraid that his strength has already reached the level of the god of ninja world. Thinking of this, Hanzo hesitated rarely, because it seemed that the war had ended as soon as it began with the existence of this Hokage. Konoha is inherently invincible. If this is the case, the alliance between the two countries is actually a joke. But Ying's will was firm, and after a few seconds, Hanzo drove the thoughts out of his mind, and the powerful aura that had become flashy due to hesitation surged again. It's too late to think about these things now. The war against Konoha can only be won and not lost. He had a strong feeling that if they lost, there would be no chance of recovery in the future. You will be trapped in the shadow all your life and will never be able to escape. This thought became stronger and stronger and could not be shaken off his mind. Hanzo's expression darkened and he spoke to his men. Go tell the Sand Ninja to start the final battle as soon as possible. We can't wait any longer. Yes. After a response, the figure disappeared. Hanzo gazed deeply into the distance, and then unscrupulously released the aura that represented the cage level. The surrounding earth, rocks and gravel all buzzed, and the sound of collapse could be clearly heard, even if there is only a 1 in 10,000 chance. Hanzo. We'll fight against Yan Yi. I won't accept it. Hanzo's angry and resentful roar echoed in the forest, and his unrivaled momentum shook the earth and even caused the ground to sway slightly. There is a strong sense of unwillingness in the words, as well as a fight against the injustice of fate. The Rain country will surely flourish in his hands, and he will die if he fails. At Hanzo's urging, the Sand Ninja kept trying to provoke disputes, but Konoha just laughed it off and did not confront the Sand Ninja head on. Just like a cat and mouse, the cunning mouse always escapes and leaves the cat exhausted. Until the 31st year of Konoha, on this day, the Sand Ninja did not chase, but retreated abnormally to the territory of the Rain country. Hinata Kazumi opened her Byakugan to scout ahead and pass on messages. It was discovered that all the Sand Ninjas had evacuated, even the hidden sentries. After the news was passed back to the Konoha camp, Hatake Tsukumo frowned, wondering what the Sand Ninja meant. Did he not want to fight anymore? Fujito Takatora asked doubtfully. Is the Sand Ninja admitting defeat? I don't think so. Uchiha Wang shook his head. It would be too awkward to admit defeat at this time. Besides, the Rain Ninja had not yet used his full strength. It would be too unwise to admit defeat. Elder Danzo, what do you think the Sand Ninja's intentions are? Hatake Tsukumo looked at Danzo. Danzo did not disappoint. After some calculations in his mind, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. I'm afraid they want us to enter the Rain country for the final battle. As soon as these words were spoken, Hatake Tsukumo suddenly became thoughtful and others began to talk about it. Why do they think we will definitely go? Someone asked, puzzled. In response, Hatake Tsukumo slowly said, I'm afraid the news has leaked out from within Konoha. The Hokage originally wanted to defeat them, or destroy the country. This statement shocked everyone. Uchiha Wang frowned and said, destroy a country? I don't think we have the strength to do that. The Sand Shinobi is one of the 5 great nations after all. The other nations can't just sit there and watch. Sarutobi Hirozen seemed much calmer, because he had some guesses in his mind during the meeting. Hatake Tsukumo shook his head and said, "It's not the Sand Ninja, it's the Rain Country. Incorporate the Rain Country into the territory of the Fire Country." Everyone was shocked by his words and remained silent for a long time. Hatake Tsukumo glanced at them one by one, his face serious. "So, we must enter the Rain Country, conquer Hanzo by force, conquer the Rain Country." After the shock, Danzo adjusted himself and asked, "What about the Sand Ninja?" Hatake Shigesaku smiled slightly, revealing a dangerous look, and murderous intent gradually rose. "As for the Sand Ninjas, let them never return. Just like what the Hokage said, if they dare to invade Konoha, they will never return." This sentence is very domineering. Konoha's sharp sickle will cut off all the weeds that block the way. "I agree," Danzo, who is warlike in nature, said immediately. "The Sand Ninja must make him feel pain, so that he will behave himself. This is how we should treat our enemies." A commander-in-chief and a Konoha elder both had such a tough attitude, and the rest of the people just went with the flow and agreed. At this point, the tone for the war was set, and Hatake Tsukumo and everyone began to discuss the battle plan. Making sure to pay attention to every detail and not make any mistakes in all their words fell into the time and space seal on Bai Shiayu's forehead and into the ears of Zingai Feng while they were preparing to launch the final offensive. The Konoha village far behind them also began a capture operation after a year of tracking and investigation. Feng Zingai has completely figured out the smuggling route and has sufficient evidence. At the same time, he received the decision of everyone in the Konoha camp, and then ordered the capture operation to begin. Chapter 115, Kill the insects and catch them all in one swoop. Lu Yi, keep a close eye on him. It's best to capture him on the spot. Don't let any of them go, Zingai Feng said with a sharp look in his eyes. Over the past year, they have smuggled a lot of supplies. The amount has increased, and the profits have increased several times. Zingai Feng had long wanted to wipe them out in one fell swoop, and then clean them out naturally. Don't worry, Hokage. The Aburain clan has sent out all of their Jonin, and they are all experts at tracking. Narashikechi grinned, full of confidence. Well, as long as there is a deal, take action immediately and catch them all in one fell swoop, Zingai Feng said in a deep voice. Narashikechi had been waiting for this moment for a long time, and it was finally over. He had rarely even gone home recently, and his children almost didn't recognize him. Now that I hear that the net is about to be closed, I am so moved that I almost cry. As night falls and it gets dark, the villagers have all fallen asleep, but outside the village there is a crowd of people. Hurry up and don't stop." The leader of the escort had a ferocious look on his face, and there was a hint of murderous intent in his demeanor, which showed that he had obviously killed someone before. "If you delay things, watch out for your lives." This was not his first time smuggling, and the previous few times had gone smoothly. But his intuition told him that something was going to go wrong tonight. My right eyelid kept twitching and I felt inexplicably panicked. Dozens of big men, pushing carts loaded with goods, walked along the night road with ease, just as if they were walking in the daytime. Hearing the leader's words, he subconsciously quickened his pace under the cover of night. A dozen ninjas moved stealthily and silently through the woods. When they reached a meeting point, the leader suddenly felt relieved, thinking that he was just being scared. "Watanabe, where are you? The goods have arrived. Why don't you come out and move them?" Seeing that no one was there, the leader frowned and shouted at the top of his voice. According to past practice, there should be someone here to respond, but there was complete silence. The mind that had just relaxed was tense again. Gugu. When two birds cried, the leader felt an ominous feeling in his heart. He turned around and ran away, feeling terrified. Swish, swish. The leader had only taken 2 steps when Aburin Fuda suddenly appeared in front of him with an expressionless face. The sudden scene made him lose his mind in an instant, and he collapsed to the ground. Are you a human or a ghost?" The corner of Aburin Fuda's mouth twitched. This was too rude. He just walked quietly, but he was too timid to talk like that. Looking at the trembling man, he said calmly, "Neke Amaji, we are smuggling Konoha military supplies. Please come with us." Hearing his words, Nakayamaji instantly had a stress reaction. After all, he was a veteran and was worried all the time when they saw the Konoha ninjas. They knew something had happened and they ran away, but how could an ordinary person outrun a ninja? He was caught after taking only 2 steps. Aburin Fuda nodded slightly, and said sparingly, "Go back to the village." While the arrest was taking place, a large number of Anbu suddenly rushed into the residence of the 5 people in Konoha village. Hadoyama's Haiming shouted sternly, "Assholes, What are you trying to do? I have a high-ranking official from the Fire Nation behind me. This kind of threat might work on ordinary people, but the Anbu members are all people who live on the edge of a knife. How can a mere verbal threat have any effect? How? The Fire Nation has no control over this place, the Anbu sneered, and without saying anything more, he waved his hand and had someone pull him out of the bed without even giving him a change of clothes. What happened here? There were 4 other people, all of whom were forcibly detained by the Anbu. Not only that, Xingai Feng adhered to the principle of catching them all in one fell swoop, from top to bottom, not letting anyone go. It's a dark and windy night when people are arrested. The ninjas are like elves in the night, walking among the people and arresting people one by one according to the list. The lights were on brightly that night in the interrogation room. Feng Xingai personally interrogated the 5 people with a stern expression, as if he was holding back a fire in his heart. Hey, where's your usual bossy look? Xingai Feng raised his eyebrows, looking at the 5 disheveled people, feeling quite refreshed, and couldn't help but said jokingly, it's easy to send the king of hell away, but it's hard to deal with the little devil. Fukuda Yasushi was like an angry lion, pointing at him and roaring, Xingai Feng, you are so brave, don't think you are a human being just because you are the Hokage, bah. Who the hell do you think you are? I tell you, let us go quickly, or you will suffer. Xingai Feng squinted his eyes and looked around, then found a problem. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been scared to death by now, but the 5 people in front of him were so arrogant that they thought it was a trivial matter and ordered him, the Hokage, around. It's also a different way to broaden your horizon. Seeing that he had not spoken, Fushun Yasushi thought that he was frightened by him, and immediately became proud. Now you are afraid, it's too late, I must go to the daimyo to sue you, I will tear you into pieces. Your parents and your brother will not be able to escape from my grasp. Ha ha ha. Several people immediately burst into laughter, completely turning the tables on Bian Gang and starting to criticize Xingai Feng. Such threatening words to the family. Without waiting for Kid Hoshino to say anything, Narashikechi punched Fukuda Kanpo in the face without showing any mercy. It hit the wall and got embedded in it, and he instantly passed out. The little universe that was about to explode from Xingai Feng was stopped by this slap. Good angle, good strength, thumbs up. Narashika clapped his hands, feeling relaxed both physically and mentally. He could tolerate the Hokage scolding him, but threatening his family was unbearable. However, although this punch was very painful, Feng Xingai did not intend to let it go. Damn it, the disaster should not affect the whole family, let alone a little Karami who dares to say such things. He must have been spoiled. All of you get out. Xingai Feng turned his head and looked at the Anbu behind him, then added, close the door. Everyone understood what he meant, lowered their heads, closed the door and walked out. Luai, you're still too gentle. Xingai Feng looked at Nara Luai with a smile, and said meaningfully, I haven't exercised for a long time, I think today is a good day. How about practicing? As Xingai Feng spoke, his eyes turned towards the remaining 4 people, becoming increasingly dangerous. When Narashika heard this, he immediately understood, rubbed his hands together and slowly walked towards them. You, what are you doing? At this time, Hado Yamatomoki and others finally realized that something was wrong. This place has been closed at this moment, and they can neither enter nor leave. The fate of Yasushi Fukuda is obvious to all, and it is possible that they will be the next. Nothing, I just want to kill your arrogance and cure your bad breath for free. Don't worry, it will be done quickly. Hoshino Kaede had a blank expression on his face, with frost appearing on his face. A cold and suffocating feeling instantly surged into the hearts of the 4 people. It was a chill that penetrated into the soul, and all the internal organs froze at that moment. Save, save, the word life was stuck in his throat and he couldn't utter it. Then he heard screams coming from the interrogation room, each one getting louder and louder. The Anbu performed their duties loyally, guarding outside like a door god, watching with their eyes and their noses, and pretending to be blind and deaf. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Decisive Battle. Battle of the Rain Country, 1. The 2 men beat them up so badly that they felt like they were living a life worse than death. Their screams almost broke through the sky. The sound was enough to make anyone who heard it cry and feel heartbroken, but unfortunately, no one cared. A strong dragon cannot defeat a local snake. In Konoha's territory, no one is as arrogant as them. Besides, the Fire Nation is not a dragon. After the reform of Konoha, The economy gradually broke away from the constraints of the Fire Nation. The Fire Nation's tiny grant is no longer needed, it's comfortable. Being a human sandbag is really great. At this moment, Kid Hoshino has none of the demeanor of a Hokage. His clothes are half open and he is sweating profusely. If you don't look carefully, you would think he is a street thug. Happiness is built on the suffering of others. If one side is happy, the other side will be miserable except for the unconscious Fukuda Yasushi. The other four had faces swollen like pigs, bruised noses and faces, and even their speech was slurred. Hoshino Kaede and Naruto were very careful. Apart from the face, there were no visible injuries on the parts covered by clothes. Woo woo woo, the pig-faced man spoke in a humming voice, but his mouth twitched every time he moved, and the meaning of the words could not be understood at all. Lu Yi, they are being held here. Go to the capital in person and tell us everything that happened here. Those officials are so high and mighty, they really think they are important. If they don't give Konoha an explanation, I can't guarantee that I will do anything out of line. Hoshino Kaede put on her revealing clothes, let out a long breath and said to Naruto, Zingai Feng had met those officials in the capital with his teacher before, and the impression they left on him was just one sentence: a bunch of useless bastards. Scum. The words were harsh, but they were the most euphemistic adjective that Zingai Feng could think of. Can you imagine what kind of filth is hidden beneath the most prosperous capital of the Fire Nation? The poor people were barely clothed and had to struggle all day long to earn 3 meals a day. The lower class people suffered terribly, having to serve the nobles their entire lives until their death. In contrast, the nobles, high above, live at the top of the pyramid, overlooking the earth and greedily demanding the flesh and blood of the people. Such situations are everywhere. When Zingai Feng came here for the first time, his eyes almost popped out of his head. He couldn't believe that the capital had fallen into such a situation at that time. The young Zingai Feng asked innocently, "Is there no one to take care of it?" Senju Hashirama stopped, sighed heavily, turned to look at him and said, "No one dares to control." These 4 light words revealed the current situation. The bloody reality was in front of everyone, but no one spoke out. Zingai Feng was deeply shocked by these words. He lowered his head and happened to see his brand new clothes, and then looked at the ragged, disheveled refugees. Suddenly, an indescribable feeling arose in my heart, a feeling of deep powerlessness, and a feeling of helplessness when seeing the current situation. It was because of that incident that Feng Zingai wanted to work hard to change everything and took action to do so. Naruto could sense the murderous intent in Hoshino Kaede's tone, so he sighed and nodded, but still asked, "What if those people are stubborn and refuse to change?" Hoshino Feng's eyes moved, and the corners of his mouth rose. "Stubborn? Haha." His smile was extremely mysterious. Naruto suddenly felt a chill in his heart, and he observed a second of silence for those people. If there is no explanation, you take this out when the time comes. Zingai Feng's fingers kept outlining in the air. Each stroke seemed to be moving time, and a faint light flashed at the fingertips. Then a terrifying force suddenly erupted, followed by a flash of dazzling white light. The bright light blinded him and he couldn't open his eyes. Naruto put his hands in front of his eyes, and his eyeballs felt sore. After a while, the strong light gradually died down. Naruto put down his hand and looked again. He saw a miniature clock in Hoshino Kaede's hand. "It's a very exquisite watch." Naruto hesitated for a long time before saying this. Zingai Feng raised his lips and said, "It is very delicate, but also very dangerous." Having said that, he handed it to him. Naruto looked at it carefully and was more and more amazed. "This style of watch is very rare." As I rubbed my fingers, a long-lasting historical atmosphere came to my face, and the touch felt mysterious. If you listen carefully, the subtle ticking sound is like the ancient passing years, quietly telling the past time. The surface of the clock is engraved with light green patterns and branches and leaves, which, although abrupt, blend into the whole thing naturally. "No one will be killed, I hope," Naruto blurted out after just one glance. "Konoha is at a critical moment right now, so it's not appropriate to turn hostile." Zingai Feng patted his shoulder and signaled him to relax. "Turbulence is not what I want. Boiling a frog in warm water is." After saying that, he turned around and left. Judging from the time, the fighting should have started over there just as Kid Hoshino thought. Hatake Tsukumo led his troops directly into the land of rain. The humid air strengthens water jutsu and suppresses fire jutsu. Going deep into the hinterland, Hatake Tsukumo's goal was very clear, heading straight for the hidden rain village. According to the information sent by the scouts, all the members of the Sands village retreated to the hidden rain village, which became the final battlefield. Hanzo actually set the battlefield in the hidden rain village. "Isn't he afraid that his years of accumulation will be wasted?" Fujito Takatora muttered. Even though he was not smart, he knew what the consequences would be. Uchiha Wang explained, this is his last stand. The Rain Country only has one chance, he cannot accept failure. He must win even if it costs him a heavy price, but this is just like throwing an egg against a rock. It's just a last-ditch effort. He admired Hanzo's approach, but it would not change the ending. Hatake Tsukumo nodded slightly and said, he has cut off his own escape route. As a ninja, Hanzo is undoubtedly qualified and will fight to the death. If you were not on the wrong side of the issue, he really would like to make friends with this person. No one present can match his magnanimity and courage. As they were talking, they came to a relatively flat terrain, and looking forward, they saw a mixture of sand ninjas and rain ninjas, and it was crowded with people. The raindrops fell on everyone, and everyone had a serious expression, as if they were ready to die. The third Kazekage, Hanzo of the Salamander, Chiyo and others lined up in a row at this moment. The sky's heavily overcast, and it feels like dark clouds are pressing down on the city, threatening to destroy it. Hanzo of the Salamander, wearing a mask and armor, holding a sickle with a chain in his hand, looked down at the Konoha ninjas who were slowly approaching. As you wish, we have to put an end to this today. Hatake Tsukumo drew out the White Fang ninja gun, and the dazzling white light could not conceal its sharpness even in the dim light of the Rain Country. Ha ha ha. Then let's speak with strength. Hanzo took a step forward and his figure disappeared in an instant. Tsunade and the other two looked at each other, nodded, and acted according to the plan, chasing Hanzo in a few steps. Chapter 117, Decisive Battle, Battle of the Rain Country, 2. Phase Shadow, nice to meet you again. This is the nth time we've met, Hatake Tsukumo said sharply, stroking the blade with his palm. The third Kazekage raised his hands, and iron sand appeared out of thin air on the ground, ready to attack. He sneered, this is the third time. This time, either you die or I die. I think the same thing. Hatake Tsukumo's eyes darkened, and he rushed forward with White Fang steps. Fanging was not to be outdone, and he stepped on the sand iron and moved forward at a very fast speed, as if he was walking in the air. The actions of the two also indicate that the final decisive battle is coming. Go. Kill them. Konoha will never be afraid. Long live the Hokage. Wherever the leaves are flying, the fire is endless. The Konoha side was excited and morale was high, fighting for victory and for peace. A shocking melee broke out, with a total number of people on both sides reaching over 10,000. If you look down from the air, you will see that the mountains are full of human figures moving around, and all kinds of escape techniques are emerging one after another. The White Fang in Hatake Tsukumo's hand flashed with light, and he attacked at almost instantaneous speed, but his opponent was not. The Kazekage. A white arc of light quickly swept across the ground and headed towards the Chiyo puppet. Hatake Tsukumo, come and fight. Chakra surged around Chiyo's body, and dozens of puppet strings flew from his fingers. Secret technique? The 10 Kanmatsu men, 10 precisely crafted puppets appeared around. These were the puppets made by the puppeteer's master, Bunzeman. It can be said that this represents the pinnacle of puppetry today. Chiyo looked crazy, and with a flick of her wrist, she controlled the puppet to confront Hatake Tsukumo head-on. It's just a puppet, break it for me. Hatake Tsukumo's eyes focused, and the white tooth in his hand suddenly shone wherever the sword light passed. It was like the center of a storm. This was Hatake Tsukumo's sword. Faced with the sword light attacking her, Chiyo was an experienced ninja and reacted instantly. Puppetry? Mechanical light shield seal. Chakra emanated from the palm of his hand, instantly transforming into a solid shield to block in front of him. Clang! White Fang's sword slashed on the shield, causing the chakra shield to vibrate and ripple. Obviously it had suffered an extremely strong blow. Chiyo's expression lit up with joy, and he immediately mobilized his puppets to rush forward. These puppets all possessed impressive physical skills and techniques. Hatake Tsukumo slashed with his sword several times in a row and dealt with the puppets. Bang! 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 Hatake Tsukumo fought calmly. Even when he was outnumbered, he remained calm as a warrior. Years of training have allowed him to maintain a calm mind. A White Fang is all he has. After dodging the attacks of several puppets, Hatake Tsukumo raised the corners of his mouth, revealing a confident look. Seeing this, Chiyo suddenly had a bad feeling and increased her chakra output, hoping to resolve the issue as soon as possible. But a shadow-level warrior is not so easy to kill. My brother was right to ask me to learn more. Now it's useful. Hatake Tsukumo chuckled and whispered. After keeping some distance between them, he placed White Fang in front of his chest, then formed a seal with one hand and shouted loudly, 8 gates? Open the gate for me. But it wasn't over yet. Hatake Tsukumo shouted 3 times again, shut up, Huangman. The gate of life. Open. After opening 4 doors in succession, Hatake Tsukumo's momentum rose rapidly, directly reaching the peak of the cage level. A strong sense of threat spread throughout Chihayo's body, as if a ferocious beast had been released. It turned out to be the 8 Gates ninjutsu. Chihayo's face turned pale. The situation was out of his control. I thought his swordsmanship was superb, but I didn't expect that he could be distracted by practicing this forbidden technique. Chihayo's heart hit rock bottom, but with the help of the 8 Gates ninjutsu, the scales of victory were gradually tilting to the other side. I can only open 4 doors. This is my limit, Hatake Tsukumo said generously to Chihayo. Chihayo, you are the first one who pushed me to this point, so let me treat you well. After opening the 4 gates, Hatake Tsukumo's body was enhanced in all aspects, and his chakra was running wild. The violent chakra lingered on White Fang, adding a sense of ferocity to it. The next moment after he finished speaking, White Fang instantly disappeared from the spot, and a red slash attacked from behind Chihayo. Boom! There was no time to dodge completely. Chihayo gritted her teeth and barely blocked it, but her wrist was numbed by the shock. Today, Hatake Tsukumo is not on the same level as Chihayo, and Chihayo can only passively take the beating. The invincible puppet was violently split by White Fang, and parts flew out. Chihayo's mind moved, and the fragments changed shape in the air, bursting out with various mechanisms and sharp blades. With a loud bang, an explosion sounded. At this moment, White Fang would kill any god or Buddha that stood in his way. The simple mechanism has no effect at all. Damn it! Chihayo's face looked extremely ugly. He put away the puppet. In this state, Hatake Tsukumo was not something she could stop at all. Before she could catch her breath, the deadly attack came again, and this time, Hatake Tsukumo did not hold back. Baya raised his sword high, and the red sword light flashing with dazzling light quietly converged into the blade. The heart-pounding and frightening sword intent instantly filled the entire space like a tide, as if it was going to swallow up everything. The overwhelming murderous intent and the unparalleled sharp sword intent intertwined and merged together, making the surrounding air seem to solidify. At this moment, even the heaven and earth could not help but tremble and shake. Chihayo's eyes widened in horror. Her body frozen in place as if under a spell, unable to move at all because she clearly felt that she had become the other party's target and had no way to escape. A huge, illusory and blurry sword shadow suddenly appeared between heaven and earth, towering into the clouds at a height of 100 meters. Hatake Tsukumo's eyes focused and his mind moved. The extremely terrifying sword shadow, with the power to destroy the world, chopped down directly towards Chihayo. What is that? Hurry, run! At this moment, the entire battlefield saw the bloody blade falling to the ground. The Sand Ninja and the Rain Ninja felt a chill in their hearts, and in an instant they lost all their fighting spirit and fled in panic. Puff! The towering giant knife sank into the earth, splitting the thick earth into two like cutting tofu. Dust and sand were flying everywhere, and the entire battlefield became quiet. The smoke cleared and Hatake Tsukumo slowly walked towards the dying Chihayo. Even if Chihayo mobilized all her strength to defend against that attack just now, it would not be enough. Looking at Chihayo who was about to die, Hatake Tsukumo shook his head and still gave her some simple treatment. After doing all this, Hatake Tsukumo raised his white fang and shouted loudly, "Chihayo is defeated. Those who surrender will not be killed." Witnessing that shocking blow, the Sand Ninjas' morale collapsed like a punctured balloon. The morale of the Sand Ninjas was shaken, and some of them lost their fighting spirit and surrendered, but there were still some stubborn elements who prayed that the Kazakage could save the situation. But, can such a miracle really happen? Chapter 118, Decisive Battle, Battle of Rain Country, 3, Konoha 3 Ninjas. The word miracle is illusory. When faced with danger, people usually pray for a miracle to happen, but often get no response. This time, it is also true. Kazakage, your dream of starting a war and coveting Konoha's resources has been shattered. Why don't you stop? Hatake Tsukumo's announcement did not escape the ears of the three men. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked delighted and shouted to the Kazakage. The Kazakage had a gloomy look on his face, cursing Chihayo for being useless and being defeated in such a short time. For the Sand Ninja, there is no turning back. Taking a step back would lead them into the abyss. Ha ha ha. You two should worry about yourselves first, Feng Ying said harshly, and gold sand surged around, then covered the surrounding space, attacking like the sea. HMPH. You're still stubborn. Seeing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen snorted coldly and rushed forward with Shimura Danzo. Old buddy, come out. Sarutobi Hiruzen bit his finger and slapped the ground. White mist rose up, and after it dispersed, Sarutobi Hiruzen smashed the ground with a golden cudgel in his hand. In an instant, the rocks shattered, generating a huge shock wave that rushed forward with unabated momentum. Feng Ying put his hands together, and under his control, The gold dust suddenly surged together to form a wall of gold dust. The thick wall was shining with a dazzling golden light, as if the wall was made of countless gold. And its defensive power was also higher than that of the earth flow wall. Boom! The oncoming shock wave was blocked steadily, as solid as a rock, indestructible, without any trace of damage. Then, the chakra in the Kazakuge's body suddenly exploded, and the gold sand under his feet slowly rose into the air, constantly changing shape. The Kazakuge quickly formed seals with his hands and shouted, "Magnetic style, sand iron attack!" Suddenly, triangular cones emitting cold light floated in the air, like ghosts suspended in mid-air surrounded Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo. Feng Ying's mind moved, and the sky full of gold sand cones seemed to have received an order and rushed towards the two of them at an astonishing speed. These gold placer cones are densely packed and numerous, just like the dense raindrops falling from the sky at this moment. Endless the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sounds of breaking through the air came one after another, making people feel scared. It's really troublesome. Faced with such a fierce attack, Danzo frowned, then his cheeks puffed up, and then he spat out. In an instant, a huge gale was generated, and this strong wind swept over with a roar. Its power was so great that the rapidly moving gold sand cones suddenly came to a standstill, unable to move forward at all. Then, Sarutobi Hiruzen immediately formed a seal and shouted, "Fire style, Phoenix fire technique." As soon as he finished speaking, the spell was completed, and one after another, blazing fireballs shot down the gold sand cones suspended in the air. The high temperature weakened its magnetism, and it escaped Feng Ying's control, turning into sand and merging into the earth. Feng Ying's face darkened when he saw this, as if some secret had been discovered. "Kazakuge, can you defeat us in such a short time? This battle will be lost the moment Chiyo is defeated," Sarutobi Hiruzen said in a serious tone. Although Feng Ying is strong, his level is almost the same when facing the two of them, and it is impossible for him to escape in a short time. What the sand ninja lacks now is time. Feng Ying gritted his teeth and glared, but he couldn't refute his words. After all, his words were the facts. But despite this, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. So what? Hanzo's fight isn't over yet. Are you so confident that you will win? As long as Hanzo defeats Konoha, there is still a glimmer of hope for victory. Speaking of which, when Chiyo was defeated, she placed her hopes on the Kazakuge. Now the Kazakuge is in a stalemate with the other two, but they both placed their hopes on Hanzo. The two of them were thinking the same thing. Hanzo, Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head and laughed after hearing this, with a playful look in his eyes. "You put your hope on an outsider. Is this the Kazakuge?" Feng Ying's face darkened and he said, "As long as we can win, any method is fine." Danzo sneered, "Unfortunately, there is no such possibility. Hanzo of the Rain Country is not someone you can trust. How dare you put your hopes on him?" Although he acknowledged Feng Ying's strength, the others were not up to par at all. The Sand Ninja gained nothing from the attack on Konoha this time, and he will probably have a hard time after the war. There is no way those three can beat Hanzo, there is no doubt about that, Feng Ying said with a firm tone. From the perspective of strength, this is indeed the case, and even Sarutobi Hiruzen did not refute this. "Indeed, my three disciples are a little young after all. They are still a little lacking in skills when facing Hanzo." When Feng Ying heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up, as if hope was right in front of him and he could grab it with just a stretch of his hand. But Sarutobi Hiruzen immediately changed the subject. "But do you think Hanzo will still help you now?" His tone was calm, but his eyes were full of wisdom and insight. It was as if he could see through the innermost thoughts of the person in front of him at a glance. Then, he raised another sharp question. "In the current situation, will Hanzo and Konoha fight to the death?" These two consecutive questions hit Feng Ying's heart like a heavy hammer. His originally resolute expression suddenly became a little dazed, and his face changed slightly. Obviously, these problems were exactly what he had been worried about but dared not face. And just as Sarutobi Hiruzen was talking about at this moment, in a quiet valley in the land of Rain Tsunade, Jiraiya and Orochimaru were covered in wounds and dust, looking extremely miserable. The environment around them was in an even greater mess. The forests were in ruins, and the land was turned over beyond recognition. Judging from the situation at the scene, the battle was extremely fierce. It can be imagined that both sides have tried their best, or in other words, one side has tried its best. However, the outcome of the battle was not unexpected, as some clues could be seen from the expressions of the three people. "Hanzo of the Rain Country is truly powerful," Jiraiya said through gritted teeth. He had several broken ribs, and it was very painful to move. Orochimaru's face was as pale as paper. He looked weak, and he didn't want to say a word. Tsunade summoned slugs to treat them, but the progress was very slow and it was useless for the time being. Tap tap tap, The sounds of Hanzo's footsteps came from the front. He looked down at the three people who were in a miserable state. Konoha is truly a place of outstanding people and talents, Hanzo sighed, but there was a murderous intent hidden deep in his eyes, very small, but there, and he was always restraining it. If the three of them were given a few more years, it would be hard to say who would win. Seeing the three people's alert expressions, he suddenly smiled and laughed loudly, which made the three of them confused. Then, with a solemn and dignified expression, he said to the three people in a majestic tone, "I recognize your strength." He paused, then continued, "Today, I, Hanzo, officially grant you the title of Three Ninjas. I hope you can shoulder this honor and continue to move forward." Chapter 119, Decisive Battle, Battle of Rain Country, 4, Hokage, here we come. "Who asked you to give it to me?" Tsunade clenched her teeth, her face full of reluctance and anger. She could never accept such a thing, being given a name that represents humiliation by the enemy. Orochimaru, who was standing aside, always maintained a cold expression, but at this moment it became even colder and chilling, as if a poisonous snake was looking at everything in front of him with indifference and contempt. An extremely cold aura emanated from his entire body, and the air around him seemed to have dropped several degrees because of this chill. There is no doubt that Orochimaru was also extremely dissatisfied with what Hanzo had just said. However, faced with such provocation, Hanzo just raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Revealing a disdainful smile, he looked down at Tsunade and Orochimaru with an attitude of contempt, and the faint murderous intent in his eyes quickly spread like a prairie fire deep down. The desire to wipe out all life grew stronger and stronger like a surging tide. If he hadn't been concerned about the Konoha village, these people would have already become the souls of his men, right? Thinking of this, Hanzo couldn't help but feel a surge of resentment and anger in his heart. These ignorant guys actually dared to challenge his authority. At this moment, the murderous intent that had been suppressed for so long in Hanzo's heart could no longer be hidden, and it burst out like a flood breaking through a dam instantly. The whole space was filled with a suffocating murderous aura. Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya all felt this overwhelming murderous intent at the same time, and their faces couldn't help but become solemn. "You two seem to have irritated him." Jiraiya swallowed hard, his voice trembling slightly. A powerful aura as fierce as a surging river roared out from Hanzo's body in an instant. The three of them felt again the same sense of powerlessness they had just experienced in the fight. This feeling was like an adult playing with a baby, and the clear sky was instantly covered with dark clouds. Hanzo, holding a sickle, walked towards the three people step by step. Every step seemed to step on everyone's heart, as if their life was being ravaged. Tsunade's sweat dripped from her forehead. The unwillingness in her heart turned into motivation. Under Hanzo's astonished eyes, she broke through all the restraints. Tsunade suddenly exerted force from her waist, and her feet stood firmly as if they were rooted deep in the earth. Then, she gathered all her strength into her fist and threw it with the force of thunder. This punch contained endless anger and determination, and rushed towards Hanzo with the momentum of burning the boats. Hanzo did not dodge or evade, as if he was frightened, but Tsunade did not look happy, because he saw the playfulness in Hanzo's eyes, the kind of playfulness like a cat playing with a mouse. Just as the fist wrapped in strong wind was about to fall on Hanzo's body, Tsunade's whole body suddenly became limp, like a water pump pumping water, sucking away all the strength. She tried to continue exerting force, but found that she was powerless. This decisive punch did not create a single ripple. It disappeared silently into the air without causing the slightest ripple. Tsunade's pupils shrank, her breathing became rapid, and her face turned an unnatural purple. Tsunade, Jiraiya on the side, was horrified. He wanted to rush to Tsunade to check the situation immediately, but found that his legs were completely out of control, and he couldn't even exert a bit of strength. He could only watch as Tsunade fell limply to the ground, his heart filled with anxiety and worry. The antidote is ineffective. The poison in his body has spread throughout his body, Hanzo said calmly. It's too late to save him. Even if the Sage of Six Paths were alive, it wouldn't be possible. His tone was very confident. No one knew better than him how poisonous the salamander was. Then, he paused, looked at the other two, and said, "You will be the same. You will soon be unconscious like her, and then die without knowing it." As soon as he finished speaking, Jiraiya and Orochimaru felt difficulty breathing, and the air was gradually deprived, and their bodies became weak and powerless. Exactly the same symptoms as Tsunade. Hanzo looked at them calmly, as if he was watching the end of a stage, and he was the audience. If it were before, he would still be a little afraid, fearing that after killing 3 people, Konoha would take revenge on the Hidden Rain village with all its strength. But after finishing it, Hanzo's heart was strangely calm. as if it were a pool of stagnant water, without any life at all. The light in front of Jiraiya and the other two gradually disappeared, and the world became silent. Hanzo witnessed this scene, and then slowly said, "I hope you can meet together in the Pure Land." He could already foresee the fate of the three people. A quarter of an hour passed, time seemed to stand still, Hanzo's calm expression gradually became solemn, and the breathing of the three people was still. At the moment of death their lives seemed to be imprisoned by an invisible force. It's as if there is a layer of window paper between life and death. Just one more small step will allow you to completely cross this boundary and step into the abyss of death. However, this small step had not been taken for a long time, which made Hanzo feel confused and doubtful. "I was wondering why I felt uneasy. It turns out the trajectory here has shifted." A voice that was extremely unfamiliar to Hanzo came from behind him. It was like a biting cold wind piercing his spine, making him feel cold all over. Hanzo turned around mechanically, and then a figure that would scare him all his life came into view. The pupils between his eyes contracted sharply, his heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and even his body temperature suddenly dropped by several degrees. He struggled to squeeze out a sentence from his throat. Zengai Feng. This name seemed to carry endless pressure, causing Hanzo's soul to tremble. "That's right, this figure is the third Hokage of Konoha, Hoshino Kaede." Zengai Feng raised his eyebrows, looked at Hanzo with a terrified look, and said in a frivolous tone, "You look so terrified that you don't look like a demigod." When Hanzo heard the word demigod, his face turned as pale as paper. How did he know that? He had never told anyone else this title. The smile in Zengai Feng's eyes became even more intense. He walked towards him slowly, and then, passed by him. Hanzo stood stiffly where he stood, letting Kaede Hoshino walk past him, not daring to even make the slightest movement. "Fortunately, we arrived in time." Feng Zengai knew the conditions of several people with just a quick glance. Then, with a casual wave of his hand, a horrifying thing appeared before Hanzo's eyes. The three people's bad condition gradually subsided, and their faces became rosy, as if they had never experienced a battle. Even the originally tattered clothes became intact without a wrinkle. "God! This is the power of God!" Hanzo shouted excitedly with a crazy look. From his eyes, Hoshino Kaede saw Hanzo's fanatical pursuit of power. Chapter 120, Decisive Battle, Battle of the Rain Country. 5. The sky clears after the rain. What's wrong with me? After opening her eyes, Tsunade felt as if her head had been hit hard with a stick. It was buzzing and in chaos. After a long time, she looked down at herself and exclaimed in surprise, "I'm not dead," she shouted in disbelief, her voice full of surprise and confusion. After the words fell, Hoshino Kaede's laughter reached Tsunade's ears. "Tsunade, if you die, how can I explain to the teacher, Hokage-sama?" At this time, Jiraiya happened to wake up, and as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the figure of Hoshino Kaede. Was slightly surprised, wondering when the Hokage had arrived here. "Brother," Tsunade was surprised, with excitement in her eyes. "Why are you here?" He walked quickly to Hoshino Kaede and held his arm tightly, as if he was afraid that he would suddenly disappear. Zengai Feng helplessly pointed at Hanzo and said, "If I hadn't come, you would have already returned to the Pure Land." Although his tone was relaxed, the worry deep in his eyes lingered for a long time. An embarrassed look flashed across their faces, and they suddenly felt ashamed and embarrassed. If it weren't for Zengai Feng's arrival, they would have probably died by now. Hoshino Kaede chuckled and shook his head, then looked at Hanzo, who was trembling beside him. The relaxed smile on his face gradually disappeared, replaced by a heart-pounding coldness. "Hanzo of the Salamander, the leader of the Rain Country," Hoshino Kaede spoke slowly, his voice low and magnetic. "This should be considered our first meeting." Although it was just a simple question, Hanzo did not dare to slack off in the slightest. He stared at the mysterious man in front of him nervously, his eyes full of vigilance and caution, as if the person standing in front of him was not a human being, but a ferocious and terrifying beast. "Hoshino Kaede, what do you want to do?" Hanzo forced himself to remain calm and clenched his teeth. "What to do? No, it's not what I want to do, but what you can do." Before he finished speaking, Hoshino Kaede flashed and moved behind Hanzo in an instant like a ghost. His speed was as fast as lightning, which was astonishing. At the same time, a cold hand quietly fell on Hanzo's shoulder. Hanzo turned his head stiffly and looked into Hoshino Kaede's deep, smiling eyes. With just one glance, he seemed to see the cycle of life and death, the falling of stars, and an invisible pressure coming towards him. Even with the willpower of a cage, it still can't be stopped. However, he had been through many battles and had seen a lot. After calming down a little, he immediately said, "The Rain Country will withdraw from this war and pay a corresponding amount of pension as compensation. Hanzo has already accepted his fate." From the moment that Hoshino Kaede just raised his hand and instantly revived 3 dying people with full health, he realized how unfathomable Hoshino Kaede is. He is like a bottomless abyss, and it is impossible to guess how strong he really is when you try to face him. Fear often follows Hanzo's words let Zingai Feng know that he still had hope in his heart. He deliberately lowered his voice. You actually know in your heart what I want. Self-righteous cleverness will only lead the Rain country into an endless purgatory. Konoha is determined to win. Since you are involved, don't say anything innocent. You have no right to say these 2 words. Losers have to pay the price of being losers. You can't escape it. Hoshino Kaede's ruthless words pierced Hanzo's heart and lungs. Everything in the world has a cause and an effect. If you had been law-abiding, Hoshino Kaede would not have been so aggressive. Hanzo was unwilling to accept this. He knew what Kaede Hoshino meant, but it was not easy for the Rain country to get to where it is today. He had thought that he could get a piece of the pie by participating in the war, but he didn't know that this one step would lead to the destruction of the Rain kingdom. Sigh. After a moment, Hanzo, who had been thinking for a long time, suddenly sighed. This sigh made Hanzo lose all his energy. That arrogance and self-confidence were crushed by himself and by Zingai Feng, and there is no possibility of it reappearing. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Hoshino Kaede's lips. This Hanzo was not the kind of person who would fight to the death. He was quite quick in assessing the situation. The Rain country will be incorporated into the Fire country. I hope Lord Hokage will treat it well, Hanzo said with a lonely look. Zingai Feng promised him, I have always treated everyone equally. Since you are citizens of the Fire Nation, there is no reason for me to be partial. Then he paused, looked at him and said, what are your plans? Hanzo raised his head. After letting go of the burden, it seemed that there was nothing else he could do. Zingai Feng chuckled and said, why don't you go to Konoha? It's quite lively there. Maybe the poison in your body will be cured one day. Hearing this, Hanzo's eyes brightened a little, his lips moved, and he said hopefully, will that day really come? Hoshino Kaede turned to look at Tsunade, the future medical expert, and said, of course, I have confidence in Tsunade. After saying that, he winked at Tsunade, and the trusting look made Tsunade feel warm. Oh, by the way, if you are going to Konoha, your poison will be a problem. Hoshino Kaede nodded his chin. If left unchecked, it would lead to disaster, and Konoha would not be able to bear it. After thinking for a while, Zingai Feng said to him, I can put a seal on you and seal everything about you. After that, he paused and added, including your strength, you will live in Konoha as an ordinary person. How about it? Ordinary people. Hanzo's thoughts were in a mess. He felt lost, and his vague memories flashed before his eyes. The treatment Hanzo received when he was young was similar to that of Naruto in the future. Not to say that even dogs and cats hated him, but he was still feared by everyone. The poison of the salamander gives strength, but also cuts off the channel for getting along with ordinary people in the land of Rain. He suffered all the ups and downs of life, and was accompanied by poison all day long, so he had to stay away from human habitation. But who knows that he longs for ordinary life so much, and living in a stable and peaceful village is what Hanzo has always dreamed of. Unfortunately, the Rain country is destined to be unstable and affected by the war. Recalling this, tears inadvertently slid down Hanzo's cheeks, and he felt extremely sad. Hanzo nodded blankly with mixed emotions. Now that he was free from worries, he could lie for himself when it comes to benefiting the Rain kingdom. Hoshino Kaede is more suitable than him. He has seen all the changes that Konoha has undergone in recent years and knows his abilities. He believes that the Rain country will surely be saved from suffering in his hands. Seeing that Hanzo agreed, Feng Xingai's face became serious, and then all the natural energy within dozens of miles around gathered in Feng Xingai's hands. Hoshino Feng made hundreds of complex hand seals, and all the tremendous vitality was poured into Hanzo's body. After decades of contamination, the poison was gradually defeated. The rich vitality turned into a solid line of defense, which trapped the poison together and turned it into a solid seal. The seal was not only powerful, but also Hanzo felt that his own chakra was also being sealed one by one, and he could not use any power at all. I couldn't help but marvel at the magical methods of Zingai Feng. Chapter 121, Final Battle, Rain Country Battle, 6, and with numerous seals as protection, Hanzo is now just like an ordinary person. The poisonous miasma in his body is suppressed, and not even a trace of it can be released. Okay, you don't need to wear the mask anymore. Zingai Feng withdrew his hand, nodded with a smile. Hanzo looked at his own condition, raised his hand to take off his mask, and removed all the restraints he had worn for many years. The body that was restrained by the equipment once again felt the flow of air and couldn't help but sigh. You will have to wait for a while. You still need to deal with the affairs of the Rain country. National hatred and family feuds are not acceptable to everyone. You are needed to appease them during this period. Hanzo was extremely excited, but before he could be happy for a moment, Hoshino Kaede suddenly reminded him that he was afraid some people would not be able to accept it. Hanzo understood this deeply and immediately said, "After that, I will go to comfort them and try to reduce the hatred in their hearts, but I think most people hate war. If life doesn't force them, who would want to see turmoil?" Hanzo saw this very clearly. The Rain country was struggling to survive in the gap between the three major countries. They were short of supplies and were often exploited. Hanzo wanted to change, but was restricted by the region and could not move freely, so he could only make ends meet. Zingai Feng saw the pain in his heart and said immediately, "Indeed, hunger and disease are taking people's lives all the time. As long as these are solved, no one will be willing to fight. Right now, the Fire Nation is also in trouble, but there will always be a way out. If there isn't one, we will create one." Zingai Feng's eyes were firm. He dared to do what he said and what he thought. The two looked at each other and smiled. Tsunade and the other two looked at each other, a little confused by what the two said. "Tsunade, the situation has changed so quickly. They were so tense just now, but now they are chatting happily. I think I might be dazzled," Jiraiya said confusedly while scratching his head. Hearing this, Tsunade's mouth twitched and she turned her face away, as if to say, "I don't know him." Orochimaru seemed to be thinking about something. His eyes flickered slightly, and he said softly, "It seems that Lord Hokage has already made a plan, and he is determined to take over the Rain country." Jiraiya pricked up his ears and leaned forward to ask, "Orochimaru, does this mean that the Rain country will no longer exist?" Orochimaru glanced at him out of the corner of his eye and didn't say anything, but his eyes revealed a hint of helplessness. Is this guy really stupid, or is he pretending to be so? As the three were talking, a noisy noise came from the distance. Even from a distance, some cheers could still be heard. When Zingai Feng heard the news, he looked over and his perception spread like the tide, and he understood everything in a moment. Said to Hanzo, "It's over there. After all, that Kazekage guy can't beat four hands with two fists. I will leave first. The Second Ninja World War should come to an end." After saying that, Zingai Feng took a step forward, moved 100 miles, and instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. Seeing this, Tsunade and the other two glanced at Hanzo and then left together. The scene changed, and Zingai Feng arrived at the center of the battlefield in an instant, and saw the frustrated expression and powerlessness of Feng Ying at a glance. Thinking of this, Zingai Feng said, "Master Feng Ying seems dissatisfied." Although his voice was soft, it could be heard by everyone in an eerie way. The Kazekage was startled, and immediately looked over and exclaimed, "Third Hokage, how come you are here?" Zingai Feng smiled slightly, but said nothing. Instead, he said to himself, "Hanzo has already admitted defeat. The Sand Ninja is powerless to save the situation. Do you still want to make a futile resistance?" The sound spread in all directions, shocking the Sand Ninjas. Feng Ying took a step back repeatedly, fear in his eyes, and his mind was unsettled. "Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Lies can deceive others but not yourself. Feng Ying is just deceiving himself." When he says this, Zingai Feng shook his head. He was really blinded by the interests, but at this moment, the Rain Ninjas, who were originally allies of the Sand Ninjas, began to retreat one by one. For some reason the already desperate Feng Ying collapsed internally. Seeing this, Zingai Feng did not pity him, or rather, he was not worthy of pity. "You win, Hokage." After a moment of distraction, the Wind Shadow regained his senses and squeezed out a word from his throat, very reluctantly, "Sand Ninja, admit defeat." The words of the Kazekage represented the Sand Village at this moment, and these words, full of reluctance, were finally spoken. No matter how high spirited he was before and how he dreamed of strengthening the Sand Ninja, in the end he was inevitably shattered by one blow. The winner takes it all. The final fate of the Sand Village after the war will all depend on Kid Hoshino. At this time, Hatake Tsukumo rushed over. Hoshino Feng looked at him and found that his energy was full and his momentum was as fierce as ever. He estimated that he was about to make another breakthrough. Seeing him, Zingai Feng smiled gently. "You commanded this battle well and lived up to my expectations." Hearing this, Hatake Tsukumo's cold face softened immediately and he said, "It's all thanks to everyone's concerted efforts. I feel unworthy of this. Without the unity of the people, this war would not be easy, and this situation would not have happened." Seeing that he did not take credit for himself, Zingai Feng nodded secretly. "Gather the troops and return to Konoha, and negotiate with the Sand Ninja later." He looked around, saw that everything was done, and spoke, "Hokage-sama, what should we do with Chiyo?" Hatake Tsukumo suddenly said. Zingai Feng was stunned for a moment, then he understood what he meant. He glanced at the gloomy Feng Ying and said with a smile, "Take him back as a prisoner. After that, it depends on the sincerity of the Sand Ninja. Capturing Chiyo would be beneficial to Konoha's subsequent negotiations." Hearing this, Hatake Tsukumo nodded, then began to gather his troops and return to Konoha. After giving the instructions, Zingai Feng took a step forward immediately. Distance had lost its meaning to him, and he crossed thousands of distances in a single thought. "Lord Kazekage, what should we do next?" Only the Sand Ninja was left in the field, and for a moment, everyone looked at the Kazekage. The failure in the war was a heavy blow to the Sand Ninjas, and it immediately made them wake up. This war consumed all the wealth that the Sand Ninja had accumulated over decades. Not only that, there are also compensations and a series of treaties afterwards, which will only make things more difficult in the future. Feng Ying's face was gloomy, and he threw his Feng Ying robe and said, "Let's go, reorganize the troops and return to the village." At the command, the remaining Sand Ninjas all set out on their journey home. A few days later, this battle that attracted the attention of the ninja world finally ended, and Konoha won a great victory. The victory was won at the lowest cost, and this victory allowed the ninja world to see his terrifying strength. With just a slight move, all the enemies in other villages were destroyed. It was so terrifying. Unlike the discussions in the ninja world, when the news reached Konoha, it instantly became a hot topic, and for a moment it was like the new year. Every household spontaneously ran to the streets to spread the joyful news. Chapter 122 Capital Incident. We won. We won. The Sand Ninja surrendered. Konoha has won once again. Long live the Hokage. This is the result of aggression. No one has ever been able to shake Konoha. Every household decorated their houses with lights and streamers, and everyone was telling each other the news. The victory of the war inspired the people of Konoha, and Kid Hoshino's prestige reached a new peak. The orphanage had already been completely renovated by this time. New houses had been built, and the children were wearing new clothes and eating hot meals. When Yakashi Chihari heard the news of Konoha's victory, she also smiled sincerely. She looked down at the 1-year-old child in her arms and said in a soft voice, "Nano, Hokage-sama is the kindest person I have ever met. It is my honor. You must grow up happily and repay Hokage-sama for all he has done for the orphanage." One day, Ananoi was confused, with her big round eyes open, her head slightly tilted, and crystal saliva flowing from the corners of her mouth. Seeing this, pharmacist Chihori laughed and shook her head. Maybe she didn't understand yet. The news of Konoha's victory spread throughout the ninja world, and at the same time, a major event happened. A war broke out between the Cloud Village and the Iwagakure Village, with both sides fighting each other with bloodshed and constant friction. The third Tsuchikage Inoki devised numerous strategies and used the terrain to his advantage to fight against the Cloud Ninjas, causing them to suffer heavy losses. At the critical moment, the third Raikage burst out with amazing power, holding back tens of thousands of rock ninjas and creating time for the troops to evacuate. The final result of this battle was not known to the ninja world until a few days later, and the ending was both surprising and regrettable. The third Raikage was dragged down and exhausted to death, but before he died, he also killed thousands of Iwagakure ninjas, which made Inoki's face turn black with anger. Not only did they fail to encircle and kill the enemy, but thousands of people were killed in return. Who can you complain to? He actually met such a fierce person. But now that things have come to this, Inoki can only grit his teeth and swallow it. If you injure 1,000 enemies, you will lose 800 of your own. It is just like this. Because of this shocking battle, the Cloud Ninja and the Iwa Ninja became enemies and both sides had to withdraw. After hearing the news, Zingai Feng shook his head and sighed. "Raikage, what a pity." Perhaps it was the mutual respect between strong men. He had a good impression of the Raikage. At least they could get along. But the principle that when a person dies it is like the extinguishing of a light is of no use to him. If he wanted, he could enter the Pure Land at any time. Pull out the third Raikage to have a chat to relieve boredom. Thinking of this, Feng Hoshino no longer felt regretful and focused on dealing with post-war affairs in Konoha. After all, although Konoha won the war, it also suffered heavy losses, with thousands of casualties. These affairs after death must be handled properly without any mistakes. But compared to these, the main thing now is the negotiations with the Sand Ninja and the Rain Country. Hiruzen, tell me what we want in this negotiation, because Nara Shikachi went to the capital. He was not in Konoha at the moment, and Hoshino Kaede could only look at Sarutobi Hiruzen without waiting for Sarutobi Hiruzen to say anything. Danzo slammed the table and said fiercely, "Cede territory and pay compensation to make the Sand Ninja feel the pain, so that they will remember the consequences of starting a war." He has always been in favor of war and showed no mercy to his enemies. He only cares about the result, not the process. We can see some of this from what he did afterwards. As for whether there are morals or not, haha, in the ninja world, the strong are respected. If you are strong, you are right. Who cares about these things? Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head and said, Danzo, calm down. There are so many people here. Pay attention, HMPH, Danzo snorted lightly, but didn't say anything else. However, that fierce look was still there. He gave cruelty to his enemies and gentleness to himself. Hokage-sama, the Sand Ninja started a war and caused irreparable damage to Konoha. We must seek an explanation, Sarutobi Hiruzen said seriously. His face looked kind, but his tone was not. One thing is for sure, when it comes to interests, he is not a saint. Now Konoha is the most powerful ninja in the world, defeating its enemies with overwhelming superiority time and time again. If the Sand Ninja dare to invade, they will pay a heavy price. Zangief nodded slightly, turned his eyes and looked at the others. What do you think? Uchiha Kitajima immediately expressed his opinion. Elder Sarutobi is right. The Sand Ninja started a war without any reason, which caused a bloody storm in the ninja world and made the people of Konoha feel uneasy. There must be an explanation for this. He spoke with such certainty, as if it were true, that he was so shameless that Zangief's eyes twitched. Panic? How do you know that? Are you imagining it? Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen laughed like a fox. Great minds think alike. Minister Kitajima is right. I agree. The Sand Ninja must pay the price. After these words were spoken, other families and Jonin echoed in unison, showing an unprecedented tacit understanding. The Sand Ninjas are committing all kinds of evil, such as burning, killing, and plundering. This is causing great harm to the ninja world and they must be punished. I agree with Elder Sarutobi. Konoha has lost thousands of people. These are the people of Konoha. How can we just let this happen so hastily? Yes, that's right. Well, blood debt must be paid with blood. One life for another. The charm of language was revealed at this moment. Sarutobi Hiruzen was indeed a master of rhetoric in the future, and he mobilized the enthusiasm with just a few words. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost set, Zangief raised the corners of his lips and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. In a trance, everyone felt a chill surge in their hearts, rushing up from their spine to the top of their heads, and they all shuddered. Very good, it seems that everyone agrees. Then wait until Shikaichi comes back and start negotiating with the Sand Ninja, and sort out some things within Konoha at the same time. Hoshino Kaede's tone was as sharp as a knife, ready to strike, but his smiling eyes revealed a chill. Hearing this, everyone showed angry expressions, and Uchiha Kitajima wanted to just go to the door with a knife. Only after they returned from the battlefield did they find out what had happened in Konoha. In the past few days he worked hard in the wars outside. But there was a thief at home and he provided supplies to the enemy village. What can be tolerated by scholars? Zangief saw their expressions, and suddenly his heart moved. He stood up with a subtle expression and walked to the window. After a moment, he whispered, is it still useful? I still need to compare fists with him. Hokage-sama, what happened? The sudden standing up made everyone puzzled, and Sarutobi Hiruzen asked with a frown. Zangief came back to his senses, smiled slightly, and then said in a low voice, Haha, Lui is having some troubles in the capital. As soon as this statement came out, it immediately caused a sensation among the crowd. Could it be that? Danzo said indignantly, this is too much bullying. Those officials deserve to die. This statement is extreme, but it is what everyone thinks in their heart. Only one person said it out loud. Zangief pondered for a while, shook his head and said, it's not time to die now, at least wait a few years. I'll go over there first. You guys discuss and come up with a negotiation list, and then we can refine it later. After a brief explanation, Hoshino Kaede put on the Hokage hat, and then a faint blue halo spread around his body, and a twisted force spread out with a whoosh. It crossed a distance of thousands of miles and headed directly to the capital of the Fire Nation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123. I have never seen such a shameless person. The central area of the Fire Kingdom has a mild climate and fertile land, making it a resource-rich region. From the First Ninja World War to the present day, the 4 major ninja villages have coveted this piece of land. After more than 30 years of development, the prosperity of the capital city is visible to the naked eye, and this is indeed the case just from the surface. I'm in an alley somewhere in the capital, The spatial fluctuations rapidly intensified and then shattered. Xingai Feng took a step forward and landed safely, adjusting the bamboo hat on his head. Xingai Feng walked out of the alley and came to the street. It was a noisy area with merchants and nobles mixed in it. People were hurrying back and forth, as if someone was chasing them with a whip. It seems like more than 10 years have passed since I last came here. Feng Xingai murmured. He turned his eyes and stood in place to look around. It is prosperous, but Hoshino Kaede shook his head as if amused. The scene of feasting and revelry flashed through his eyes, and at first glance, it was as if he had entered a paradise on earth. However, behind this prosperity lies the backbone of the grassroots people. Hoshino Feng stopped and looked towards a dark place as if he sensed something. When I moved my nose slightly, a foul odor hit me. I knew without using my eyes that this was the lowest class in the capital, and it reflected the lives of most people. It was just forcibly covered up by the so-called nobles and officials who were too concerned about their reputation, born in adversity, but die in comfort. The capital is no different from the old Konoha. Thinking of this, Xingai Feng looked up at the daimyo prefecture in the distance. With his powerful perception, the situation inside was clear at a glance. Suddenly, his eyes sank slightly, and his figure disappeared silently like a ghost. Daimyo prefecture, as the core area of the capital, occupies about half of the capital's area. The periphery is guarded by samurai and ninjas, but these are useless to Kaede Hoshino. He didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so he didn't just break in, but sneaked in instead. Of course, it was only limited to Daimyo prefecture. Like a wandering soul, it took advantage of every opportunity to find where Luyu was. The voice coming from inside made Xingai Feng stop for a moment. After a moment, he stretched out his finger and lightly touched the air, and all the conversations were unobstructed. Mr. Daimyo, are you planning to protect them? Narashikachi suppressed his anger and pointed at the 5 people being escorted. He came to question the culprit, believing that the evidence was conclusive and that there would be no accidents, but no one expected that the daimyo was so unbearable, and the internal power was firmly controlled by the 5 major political families in the capital. He blatantly denied it and instead turned the tables and blamed Konoha for its actions. Narashikachi had never seen such a shameless person. He was even more illogical than a robber. In the face of Shikachi's questioning, Minamoto no Mitsuiori said nothing, responding with silence, his fists clenched in his sleeves. His eyes slightly turned to look at the people below. They are the heads of the 5 great families, the ones who control most of the power in the capital. Even the daimyo could not resist and could only be a good boy and let him control him. Seeing this, Narashika felt very depressed. He had done his research when he came here, but the daimyo's attitude was beyond his imagination. As a symbol of a country, you have to look at the faces of others. This is extremely shameful. Haha, how can you say that you are shielding someone? You are too decisive in what you said. Koizumi Hiwai stroked his mustache with a sly smile on his face. Narashikachi saw mockery and contempt in his eyes. Fukuda Ryoshi raised his eyebrows and said, "These are all slanders. Our Fukuda family has never done this." Having said this, Xingai Feng could hardly hold back any longer. Narashikachi still persisted, even though he knew in his heart that it was useless. It's just another round of wrangling, which won't change anything except wasting time. Money can move people's hearts, and the huge wealth has made them lose face. Narashikachi has already understood that they will never admit to this matter. As long as they don't admit it, everything will be fine because they are sure they won't do it. Fukuda Yasushi laughed and said, "You were very capable, why can't you do it now?" Hatred was obvious in his eyes. If Konoha had not done such a ruthless thing, he would not have lost everything. The family will not take his life, but will take back everything he has. After all, someone has to take responsibility. Every word he said was irritating Narashikachi's brain nerves. He was simply attacking him in the face and acting lawless. Bastard! A ninja couldn't swallow this insult and rushed forward with a kunai in anger. Narashikazu looked at him coldly without making any move, which seemed to indicate his assent. Suddenly, the ninja attacked and thought he could succeed. After all, his attack was very sudden and no one could stop him. Suddenly, 2 warriors appeared out of nowhere and blocked Fukuda Yasushi's way. The collision of metal and iron produced a large amount of sparks, and the kunai was blocked tightly. Samurai! There are indeed people around here, Narashikachi said in his heart. These people came prepared, or rather, they had received the news long ago and were waiting for him to come. Seeing that everyone was safe, Fukuda Ryoshi began to question the culprit, saying in a cold voice, "Are you Konoha planning to rebel? You actually started a rebellion in the daimyo's mansion." Seeing his aggressive questioning, Narashikachi said slowly and calmly, "Oh? Really? Sorry, I didn't see it." "Maybe you are dazzled." This tone and this familiar scene made Xingai Feng, who was listening outside, laugh out loud in his heart. Liu Yi's move was brilliant and exactly what he wanted, so he slapped him hard in the face. Yasushi Fukuda was so angry that he was fuming. His face turned red as if he had eaten a fly. Humph! Takahashi Rin snorted coldly and said, "No matter how eloquent you are, it will still be in vain. We have no idea what they are doing." The other two remained silent, but their expressions were the same. Narashikachi felt unwilling in his heart. It was like punching cotton, with no place to use his strength. Seeing that he was helpless, everyone smiled as if they had won. However, the more proud you are, the more likely God will ruin you. Old man, I've tolerated you for a long time. Zingai Feng kicked the door open, and in front of everyone's astonished looks, he gathered all his strength and threw a punch like a meteor. He hit Fukuda Yasushi's smug face directly, sending him flying into the sky with one punch, and then dropping to the ground like a kite. The sudden change caused silence. After a long silence, Narashikachi spoke. "Hokage-sama, why are you outside? Let's talk about it later. I've listened to the whole story and suddenly my fists are itching." After saying that, Feng Zingai sharpened his knife and rushed towards the remaining people. Minamoto Mitsuiori opened his eyes wide. Such a violent scene gave him a sense of pleasure in his heart, and his eyes made him wish he could do it himself, but his remaining rationality still allowed him to see the identity of the visitor. So, he is the Hokage of Konoha. Chapter 124, After the Dead, the boundary between life and death. So, he is the Hokage of Konoha? He thought this in his mind but remained expressionless because he was afraid that he would be the next one. Minamoto Mitsuiori moved his eyes imperceptibly to look at a hole in the wall that was big enough for two people, and fell silent. Haha, force is the best means of negotiation. I don't like this, but you insist on me taking action. Who can I blame? Zingai Feng sighed to himself and made a compassionate expression, as if he was condemning himself, but without any substantial expression. To be precise, it is just for show and has no practical use at all. Narashikachi, it is really eye-opening to see that Lord Hokage is so thick-skinned. After a little thought, he coughed lightly and stepped forward and said, "Hokage-sama, you are a little impatient." Although that punch hit him hard in the heart, he still had to say what he had to say. It was his duty. If a conflict came to arise between the officials of the capital and Konoha, it would be of no benefit to either side. In response to Liu Yi's earnest words, Zingai Feng shrugged. Neither agreeing nor refuting the real meaning is in the words. He can hear it, but listening and adopting are two different things, and Liu Yi naturally knew this very well, so his tone was very casual. "Your name is Minamoto no Mitsuiori, right?" Hoshino Feng turned his head and suddenly saw the name of the person at the top. The face gave him a sense of familiarity. It seemed as if he had seen it somewhere before. After thinking for a while, he said suspiciously when his name was called, Minamoto Mitsuiori couldn't help but tremble with a terrified expression, as if he had already anticipated his own fate. He didn't even care about the rudeness of Zingai Feng calling him by his full name. He just kept lowering his head and tried to reduce his presence as much as possible. This cowardly look made Zingai Feng frown, and he immediately felt that this daimyo was a weak person. Seeing him like this, Hoshino Feng sighed deeply, walked forward, came in front of Minamoto Mitsuiori, and said, "Your father's name is Yuan Guangai, right?" The tone was questioning, but the expression was extremely certain. This name made a trace of nostalgia flash in Zingai Feng's eyes. The sudden question made Yuan Guangladen freeze in place as if struck by lightning, and he spoke blankly, How do you know my father's name?" The puzzled expression was not only on his face, but also on Narashikachi's expression. As expected, Zingai Feng said to himself, and then explained, "I have known your father for a few times, but I have a deep impression of him. You must have been only a few years old at the time. It's normal that you don't remember it." After hearing that it was an old acquaintance, Zingai Feng's sharp eyes became much gentler, and even his tone softened a bit. Seeing that Minamoto no Mitsuiori was still doubtful, there was a hint of distrust in his eyes when he looked at him. Zingai Feng didn't care too much about it. After all, you can say whatever you want, but you can't make random connections. Well, we'll talk about the details after we've resolved the matter. You go out first. I'll talk to the others. Oh, by the way, you can check it yourself. Maybe you can find something. Zingai Feng touched his chin, and seeing his timid look, he suddenly smiled and then touched his head. The current Minamoto Mitsuiori looks no more than 15 or 16 years old, and his timid look is a bit cute. Being touched on the head unexpectedly, Minamoto Mitsuiori felt a little confused. Suddenly, I don't hate it. I seem to be very dependent on it, and deep down I long to do it again. With an inexplicable feeling, Minamoto no Mitsuiori stood up and left this dangerous place. Hokage-sama, Do you really know the daimyo-sama? After listening to the whole process, Narashikechi couldn't help but ask questions, because although he was well educated, he had never heard of such a relationship between Hoshino Kaede and the daimyo. There are so many doubts that it makes people confused. Just like one day, someone suddenly told you that they won 5 million, what would you think? Don't worry, it's true. I don't even bother to lie. Zingai Feng glanced at him, understood what he was worried about, and chuckled. After explaining, he turned his gaze to look at the remaining 4 people. At this moment, their faces were filled with fear and terror. Hoshino Kaede walked towards them step by step, as if playing the death melody of entering hell. Every step he took was precisely on their hearts, inflicting infinite fear on them. You, don't come over here. Go away, Takahashi Rin roared loudly, using all her strength, as if this could hinder Hoshino Kaede's progress. Hoshino Feng turned a deaf ear to him, tapped his face lightly with his fingers, and a meaningful light flashed in his eyes that seems like mercy. Poor man, pay the price for your greed and arrogance. A few unclear words, like a maggot attached to their bones, grew deep into their hearts and could not be shaken off. The bottomless fear filled their bodies, their eyes were wide open and their faces were terrified. Let's go, Lu Yi. They won't lie for many days, Zingai Feng, who is indifferent to life and death, said in a cold tone. At that moment, it was like the judge in hell, mercilessly sentencing others to death. Narashiko was stunned for a moment, his body trembled slightly, and he took out the pocket watch that Hoshino Kaede had given him from his ninja tool bag. Holding it in my hand at this moment, I feel a cold touch from the palm of my hand, and the cold and silent light and the green color that symbolizes life flicker. Narashikechi seemed to see the boundary between life and death above. My mind was immersed in it, like a drowning person trying to grab the last straw and unable to extricate himself just when it was about to fall. Zingai Feng took action in time to retrieve it. The originally exquisite clock turned into wisps of smoke and returned to his body. Hokage-sama. This is happening to me. Narashikechi only took a quick look, but it felt like decades had passed. His eyeballs trembled, a palpitation in his heart continued, and his expression was extremely horrified. Hoshino Kaede put her hands on his shoulders, and the lingering fear in Narashikechi's heart was completely cleared away, and the long-lost warmth reappeared. Lu Yi, there is no need to delve too deeply into some things. That is not something you can bear. The cold words came out of Hoshino Kaede's mouth. Narashika took a deep breath, wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, and nodded straight. Just kidding, no one wants to experience that kind of terror again. Being alive is better than anything else. Ugh. Horrible. This little guy can actually explore life and death from time and space. What kind of monster have I found? In my mind, Zai's shocked voice came. Compared with the previous surprise, this time it was obviously horror. This kind of talent is probably only found in 1 out of billions. Monster, Zingai Feng whispered, then smiled and said to Zai, I don't want to be a monster, I'm a good person. After saying that, he waved to the Naradir and left without looking back. Chapter 125. The corrupt system will eventually be eliminated by history. After walking out of the door, Hoshino Kaede brought Narashikechi to where Minamoto Mitsuiori was completely unaware of Feng Zingai's arrival. He sat on the ground, rummaging through boxes and drawers, trying hard to find some clues. Books are scattered everywhere, like a homeless child. Okay, we haven't found it after searching for so long, so it means it's gone. Zingai Feng's mouth twitched, and he said helplessly, holding his forehead. Naradir, who was standing by, felt a little guilty when he heard this, but quickly pretended nothing had happened. You lied to me. Minamoto Mitsuiori frowned his long eyebrows, and his handsome face looked very good. Zingai Feng clicked his tongue twice and shook his head. No, if there is no record, it means your father doesn't want to recall what happened back then. After all, what I did at the time might have been a little too much, and it might have left a shadow on him. Narashikechi's face twitched. What kind of shadow made the former daimyo so unwilling to recall it? Lord Hokage, you didn't beat him up, did you? Hiss. The more I think about it, the more likely it seems. Lu Yi suddenly realized that he had discovered something, and hurriedly stopped imagining, cleared his mind, and quietly reduced his sense of existence. When Zingai Feng saw his look, his eyelids couldn't help but twitch. This guy has bad ideas again. Can't he expect good things from me? Ahem. Hoshino Feng ignored his YY and said to Minamoto Mitsuiori, we were young at the time, so it was normal for us to be a little frivolous. Minamoto Mitsuiori suddenly had a bad premonition and took 2 steps back with a look of fear. Zingai Feng knew that he had misunderstood and continued, I said some words to him that were ahead of their time and talked about my own ideals, which caused your father to become uneasy. That's roughly the process. I didn't do anything weird or keep it to myself. Zing Gaifeng straightened his back confidently, and even he felt that what he said was correct. If you want to blame someone, blame Yuan Guanggai for not having the ability to bear it at all. Minamoto Mitsuiori seemed to be thinking about something. Although he had no evidence, his expression and tone did not sound like he was lying. Moreover, when he talked about his father, there was no respect in his eyes. Instead, he treated him as a friend. For this reason, he is much better than the previous ones. You respect me afoot, and I respect you afoot. Those people made no effort to conceal their malicious intent and treated him as a puppet, leaving the country with no prestige at all. After hesitating for a moment, Minamoto Mitsuiori asked weakly, "What did you and my father talk about?" After saying that, he added, "If you don't want to answer, forget it." The cowardice accumulated over the years seemed to be engraved in his bones, and he had never been tough towards others. The poor man had been kept here since he was a child, like a canary, noble but without any freedom. "Are you sure you want to know?" Zing Gaifeng's brows twitched, with a strange expression on his face. "Well," Narashikachi hesitated for a moment and leaned closer. "Actually, I'm curious too. These two people." Hoshino Feng looked at Narashikachi speechlessly. "Why are you joining in the fun?" Two pairs of curious eyes were staring at him, and Zing Gaifeng couldn't refuse. After all, it was not a secret that could not be told. And there was nothing to hide. After thinking about it carefully, he chuckled and said, "It's not a big deal. Now that I think about it, I'm really surprised that you are his son." It was definitely not a compliment of surprise. There was a hint of disdain in the words. Minamoto Mitsuiori lowered his head in inferiority. He knew very well that he was a failure when my father was alive. I heard from people in the mansion how smart and kind he was to others. Looking back at myself, I am cowardly, inferior and good for nothing, so there's nothing wrong with what Zing Gaifeng said. Zing Gaifeng continued, "When I first met him, I found that he was different from others. He had an active mind, but he was methodical in his actions. I could foresee how bright his future would be." Hearing such comments, Minamoto Mitsuiori looked gloomy, as if a dark cloud was covering his head. After a few words, he annihilated off right away. It felt like meeting a long-lost friend. At that time, I was not careful with my words and could not hold back. Finally, Zing Gaifeng also added in his heart, "At that time, I thought I met a fellow countryman." The two held their breath and listened attentively, afraid of missing any word. They were eager to know what happened next. Then, I told him that the daimyo is just a decoration, just a symbol of power. As time goes by, this system will inevitably decline and eventually disappear in the long river of history. The corners of Zing Gaifeng's lips curled up, revealing an elusive expression. He spoke very slowly, and every word seemed to be spoken after careful consideration, giving people a mysterious feeling. The Nara deer swallowed its saliva with a gulp, and its eyes widened like bells, as if they were about to fall out. Minamoto Mitsuiori was even more terrified. He froze in place, opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound. Obviously, what Hoshino Kaede said was like a bolt from the blue to them. After all, the daimyo system has existed for a long time and has become deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. People were full of awe for the daimyo and believed they were sacred and inviolable. However, what Hoshino Kaede said was simply heresy and directly challenged everyone's bottom line. Hokage-sama," Narashika said tremblingly, his face still full of fear. Obviously he had not recovered from the shock yet. "What you said is simply, he really couldn't find the right words to describe it." Zing Gaifeng patted his shoulders sympathetically and said, "The think tank of Konoha is frightened. My teacher also knows about this." His expression at the time was quite calm, as if he had expected it. Narashikachi was stunned. The first-generation master actually. The corners of his mouth twitched, as if a master and disciple were not impressed by the daimyo. "Yeah, it's just what you think," Hoshino Feng said nonchalantly, glancing at Minamoto Mitsuiori. Seeing that he still had an expression as if he had seen a ghost, Hoshino Feng slapped him directly. "Come back to your senses and don't be so startled." Yuan Guanggai looked at him with a feeling of grievance. This man was really strong, but despite the pain, he still asked, "What happens next?" After that, Zing Gaifeng narrowed his eyes and said with a look of reminiscence, "We never met again after that." I'm afraid he kept those words to himself and didn't tell anyone. After talking about the past, he looked at the thoughtful Minamoto Mitsuiori and said, "The memories are over. For the sake of our old friend, I will give you a reminder." Upon hearing this, Minamoto no Mitsuiori raised his head with a calm look in his eyes. Zing Gaifeng curled his lips. "It seems that you know what I am going to say." Minamoto Mitsuiori gave a bitter smile. You have almost made it clear that I am a coward, but I am not stupid. Hoshino Kaede did not comment on this. Although the words were cruel, they were realistic. The corrupt system will eventually be eliminated by history. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.